Alright, here we are, back again, hopefully. Oh my gosh. It has been a week of sickness. I slept for like 20 hours. Okay, that's only a slight exaggeration. It was, oh my god. And I still don't think I'm fully back with it, but I'm doing better. So I think I'll survive. Ooh, we shall see, we shall see. But we're back tonight. You know, we got one big gaming news story, which, you know, it's a state of play. Of course it's going to be a big thing. And then we actually have a bunch of food stuff. Because, yeah, I've been sick for like a week. I haven't wanted to cook at all. And even though a lot of places are launching new food stuff tomorrow, some of them have it early. So I tried out a few of those. We'll talk about them. I got 2 video games. For the first time in a while, I actually played some video game. So we'll talk about that. Of course, we got Goat. I saw Goat like last week, and I've just kind of been sitting on it. So we're going to talk about that today. And then Bobiverse. You know, I'm almost fucking done. If you had given me like another like 2 hours, I would have finished it. I'm really close. But we'll talk about what's happened. I finished book 4. I'm almost through book 5. Still haven't started Operation Bounce House though. Of course, we're still playing through Pikmin. I do not know how much longer. We've got to beat the Giant's Hearth. We're in the Giant's Hearth. We're going to work our way through it, do some nighttime missions, and then start the final area, the Primordial Thicket. I don't know. If we don't start Primordial Thicket today, that'd be just fine with me. But if we do, yeah, we do. It happens. But yeah, with that, let's... I've already booted up the game, so let's just get right into it, shall we? Oops. There we go. I was like, I'm in the game. What do you mean, error? That was weird. And of course, as I'm starting the stream, I'm like, I'm forgetting to do something. Ah, fuck, I forgot to update the whole, you know, stream info and the whole podcast thing. Ah, shit. So I had to get that done real quick. Yeah, so for gaming news, we got one story today. We got one big story, that being the state of play. Other stuff did happen this week. I mean, as we learned, a bunch of people from the development studio behind Highguard got laid off. And I've seen some interesting takes on that. I didn't put that in the news. But I saw someone, they were potentially a developer on the game, you know, someone who worked on the game, that actually blames some content creators, not entirely their fault, but at least they didn't help things. Because, you know, the moment the game was announced, a lot of people were like, oh, well, welcome back, Concord 2. Oh, this game's doomed to fail. And, yes, is that a little bit entitled, because, you know, nobody owes you good press? Sure. But also, nobody owes you bad press either. And coming out of the docket, being like, oh, welcome back, Concord. This is Concord 2. That's not exactly the healthiest way to look at things. But it's the internet. The internet thrives on negativity. I mean, I'm a Nintendo fan. I'm used to dealing with the grifters at this point. And the Nintendo fanboys ain't much better either. There, you know, too much positivity is also a problem. Man, that John Mebo guy. Like, I get it. He likes Nintendo. But when I think of mindless Nintendo fanboy, he's the first person I think of. And he said something dumb this week. I don't even remember what it was. It might have been about Mario Tennis. Oh, it was about Pokemon. He was so there's a rumor going around that in Pokemon Day, not next week, but the week after, they're going to announce ports Fire Red and Leaf Green. and he was talking about it, and he was like, oh yeah, you know, if Nintendo charges $30, I'd buy it. If they charge $40, I'd buy it. If they charge $50, I'll buy it. That's such a fucking bad take. Like, yeah, do I expect Nintendo to charge $30? Sadly, yes. It's Nintendo we're talking about after all. But $50 fucking dollars for the GBA, not even like a remake, just GBA Fire Red and Leaf Green. Like, fuck, man. But that's how lost in the sauce he is. And no, like, you know, he's an example. I don't actually want people to, like, go out and, like, burn him like a witch. Nah. He's just an example. There are other people like him. He's just the easy one because he's vocal. But hey, it's at least proof that positivity has at least some sort of place in our ecosystem. Speaking of positivity, let's talk about the state of play, shall we? I did not watch this live. I was at work. Afterwards, I came home. I was doing Animal Crossing. I was already feeling kind of sick. And so I was like, I'm not going to live react to it. I kind of regret that. I kind of wish I had live reacted to this one. Well, not live reacted, but, you know, watched it for the first time on stream. This was actually a pretty good state of play. I don't know if I'd say it's the best one ever. And admittedly, like, for me personally, not everything appeals to me. But overall, I was very high on this state of play. It definitely puts Nintendo's showing last week to shame. It shows how bad Nintendo fucked up last month. Xbox, on the other hand, I still think is great. Out of the three, Xbox has kind of walked away with it. Sure, they had less to announce, but what they did do, I really liked. And so far, they have, well, yes, they only have 4 games they've talked about. All 4 of those games are very strong. Not that they didn't have strong stuff here at PlayStation, it's just, you know, it's different beasts of burdens. Oh, I was saying, these enemies suck. I've never really figured out how to deal with them. I'm sure there is a way, but, like, whereas the Toady Boister is, like, a really easy enemy to fight, that it can't even hurt you, honestly, if you play your cards right. This thing kind of sucks. And, like, it looks like you should be able to, like, basketball it in. You can't. Oh god, I got something in my eye. Ah. And it's just like dirt or something. Dust. So yeah, a lot of this state of play did get spoiled for me. But I'm not too upset over it. I do wish I had reacted to it, but whatever. So we're just I'm gonna go through most things. Just give you my base thoughts on it. It started off with Kina. Yeah, Kina. Kina has a sequel, Scars of Cosmora. Cosmora? The original Kina, Bridge of Spirits, is one of those games where I remember seeing the original footage and being like, oh yeah, that looks good. Like, I like the art style a lot. It looks cute. And then when it came out, it got, you know, positive to mixed reviews. You know, like 7s across the board, which I know, gaming landscape, 7's not bad by any means. But if you ask some people, 7 is like still a bad game. But it's kind of one of those things, you know, like Days Gone, where it's an okay game, but if given the chance for a sequel, it would do a lot better. The question was, though, was it ever going to get a sequel? Because a lot of these things don't get sequels. Days Gone, for example, which is another one I think of, that was, you know, it was a 7, and it deserved a sequel it never got. This one did. This one got its sequel, and yeah, I'm interested. I admittedly have not played the original. This is all, you know, by hearsay. Have I played it, though? Did I play... I'm looking at my PlayStation games right now. Because I would have played it on PlayStation. I wouldn't have played it on PC. No, I did not ever pick up Kina Bridge of Spirits. Okay. I thought I might have. You never know with these sorts of things. No, I didn't. But again, I heard it was decent. There we go. God, I lost over 10 guys to that thing. And that's just the second batch. So yeah, I never played the original, but I heard it's good. And if the sequel fixes the problems with the original, then that's all for the better. Cause it deserves this. You know, these are the types of games that I want getting sequels. Yes, I love a good 10 out of 10, but a good 7 out of 10 also deserves a sequel that fixes the original's problems and gets it to that 8, that 9, even potentially that 10. But in the modern day gaming industry, so very rarely does that actually happen. If your game isn't a massive success, you'll never get that second chance. But just this once, it looks like it's all working out, and so far the sequel looks great. I think this looks fantastic. And also, this wasn't the only game in this showcase that falls under this thing of a game that deserves a sequel, which is also great to hear. It's coming to both PS5 and PC, and it's coming out this year, which that's great. If they do not hold to that date, I will in no way be surprised. But if they do, that'd be really cool. But if they don't, no big deal. You know, I'm used to games getting delayed. Nothing new here. Oh, we just barely didn't have enough. Good thing we got a dog to take care of it. Alright, next up, Ghost of Yotei. It's Legends DLC. We got some more information about that. Basically, I guess in the base game, which I have not played, you fight the Yotei 6, which is kind of where the game gets the name from. And so in the DLC, you're going to whatever the equivalent of hell is, and fighting demon versions of the bosses from the base game that, you know, are a lot more difficult, a lot harder to deal with. And that sounds great. Like, that sounds very interesting. You know, just giving us more to do. It's gonna have, this mode specifically is 4-player co-op. So you can play with 4 friends. There's playable classes. And it comes out March 10th. So that's right around the corner. I don't know, I played the original Ghost of Tsushima. I really liked it. Just, you know, there were too many games last year, and I just didn't get around to it. I will one day. Hopefully. Next up, they announced Death Stranding 2 is coming to PC. I think this had been rumored for a while. You know, it's going to have all the standard PC accoutrements, unlocked frame rates, ultra widescreen support. I've never had one of those ultra widescreen monitors. I've never known anybody who has one of those. But they do show very nice. So yeah, seeing that was cool. Better DualSense support, upscaling and frame rate generation, and it all comes out March 19th. So that's, you know, about a month away. Next up, we have For Loop. So this game looks fine. It kind of doesn't stand out, but also I do find it very interesting because it looks like it's a roguelite shooter. And now we've had roguelite shooters. I mean, Soros, Returnal are also, you know, roguelite shooters. But this is like a 4-player multiplayer roguelite shooter. At least that's what it looks like. I'm not entirely sure if that's the case, but it looks like that. So this is a game where, you know, it's you and your friends, you and, you know, 4 friends. You're entering into an area, and you're working together to grab loot, or grab enemies. I thought I put something... Because I thought for a second this might have been an extraction shooter. But basically, you're going into this area, grabbing loot. It's a looter shooter, I guess. And each time you go down into the area, you get, like, a specific upgrade. And that's the roguelite element. And, you know, there's tons of different things you get along the way. You get, you know, can get a portal gun, teleportation berries, camouflage. You know, you can turn yourself invisible. And then they talked about how each run ends with, like, a boss. And the boss they showed was this, like, Rubik's Cube looking thing. And that was actually kind of cool. Like, it reminds me of that. There's another game with a similar looking boss that also I thought looked kind of cool. But yeah, it's a roguelite shooter, multiplayer shooter. This isn't, you know, your high guard. This isn't a hero shooter. This is more you and 3 friends teaming up together. And yeah, it actually looked pretty decent. It's probably, you know, it's another one of those kind of forgettable games. But if it does well, I think that's fantastic. I guess they're going to be doing an open beta here soon. You know, to try out the game, to get people into it. And that might be your best chance to sell it. Because if you're doing a roguelite shooter, I'm kind of interested. My only problem is I don't really have friends. But outside of that, the rest of it, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, you know, this kind of looks fun. I see the potential here. At least I think I do. Next up, we got Pragmata. Can I be honest? I'm sick of seeing this game. It's been okay, it wasn't in the Xbox showcase, but I feel like it's been in every other showcase since basically June of last year. Because it's coming to everything. It was in the Nintendo showcase last week. It's in the PlayStation showcase this week. And yeah, this one was more like lore heavy. You know, we found out a little bit more about our main character, Hugh. Of course, the release date's still April 24th. The game demo that came out on Switch last week is also coming to PlayStation, and you can go play that right now. I've heard it looks better on PlayStation. Well, obviously it looks better, but I've heard it also kind of runs better on PlayStation as well. I don't know. I'm just ready for this game to come out. Same thing with everything Capcom's doing right now. Because after this, we got Resident Evil. And the big thing about this trailer is showing that we're going back to the police station. Yeah, that's cool. It's been a long time. I know some people got very excited for that. The big thing I was expecting at this PlayStation showcase was that we were going to get a demo. Because, you know, Pragmata got a demo. Most Resident Evil games get a demo. So we were fully expecting some sort of demo, and it just didn't manifest. You know, game comes out at the end of the month, it comes out on the 27th, and nothing. But I know people are very excited for this one. I still have not played... The only Resident Evil game I've ever played is 4. And I'll defend 4, but I've never played any of the others. Even though I own 7 and 8. After that, we got Legacy of Kain, Defiance Remastered. I don't think this had... Okay, I think this had been announced before, but we got more information. Specifically, it's being done by Crystal Dynamics. That's interesting. I did not expect that. But, you know, Crystal Dynamics, they've done some good stuff. So that's cool. There's going to be a demo of Dark Prophecy, which was the sequel that got canceled. One of the things I'm really liking in modern gaming, despite its many problems, is that we're getting a lot of demos and unreleased content that normally we just don't really get. You know, we've got this Dark Prophecy thing, the Rayman thing later on has some unreleased stuff. Of course, there's everything Nintendo Switch is doing with the Virtual Boy, which that comes out in like 2 days, by the way. Yeah, no, I'm all for this unreleased content. You know, a lot of these games do like behind-the-scenes stuff. But even, yeah, unreleased demos. Really release some of those Space World demos, man. Let us play Mario 128. Come on, Nintendo, do it. Yeah, I'm all for, you know, archival of stuff. Lost media, all that. And this is just another small way that we get more archive of stuff that we previously didn't have access to. Yeah, the Legacy of Kain Defiance Remastered comes out March 3rd. I admittedly have never played a Legacy of Kain game. I do not know much about them. But I do know, you know, I've heard of them. I did catch the reference in Astrobot. Oh god, somebody made a tweet this week that was like, oh, watch Astrobot milk their franchise like Nintendo. And it was Astrobot Kart, Paper Astrobot, Astrobot RPG, Astrobot RPG, Astrobot something else. Man, I would love that. I know that tweet was like big mad at Nintendo, but I would love if PlayStation just gave Astrobot everything. Oh, Astrobot Smash Bros. That's the one I was thinking of. Man, I just love Astrobot. Next up, Brigadine Abyss. This was an RPG. It's a strategy game. According to them, this franchise dates back to the PS1. I've never heard of this. I don't know anybody who had heard of this. But hey, I guess for the fans, good for you. And that comes out later this year. Dead or Alive 6? I looked it up. Dead or Alive 6 came out in 2019. But they're giving it a new version. This will have new DLC. It's an updated edition. It comes out in June. And it looks like the game is going free to play, which I do not care for free to play fighting games. Like, Street Fighter already annoys me enough with its DLC. The worst part about Smash Bros. Is its DLC. I love the announcement, but the actual money, ugh, it's messy. But, you know, I don't like most free-to-play fighters do not last. Because nobody actually wants a free-to-play fighter. I know that's kind of a hot take, but I don't think anybody actually wants a free-to-play fighter. I don't know, that could just be me. I'm sure there are some that are doing fine. God, we brought just enough. And then they did talk about how it is Dead or Alive's 30th anniversary. They might be doing something. You know, Dead or Alive 7, it would make sense. Not that I've really played Dead or Alive. But, yeah, we'll see. Control Resonance, we got some more gameplay of it. It reminds me a lot of Prototype and Infamous, which I know people are clamoring for an Infamous game. And while yes, this isn't actually Infamous, it's given that kind of vibe. And man, did I love Prototype and Infamous. I never owned a PS3, but I borrowed a PS3 once to play Infamous. And it was so good. And then I did have an Xbox and I did play Prototype. Man, both those games were so much fun. And so yeah, seeing this Control Resonant and kind of getting that vibe. You know, I love the perspective shifts where, you know, he just walks up to a wall and then all of a sudden, you know, you've gone a full 90 degrees. No big transition or anything. It's just you're switching perspective because, you know, that's how things work in the Control world. I need to play these games. I know I say every year that, oh, this is finally going to be the year I play Alan Wake and Control. Every year I say I'm going to do that. And then every year I never do that. But God, the game looks so good. This little trailer looked fantastic. And of course this comes out later this year. Next up, Crimson Moon. This is medieval fantasy game. You know, 2 players. I mean, it looks bloody and violent. I'm sure it's somebody's cup of tea. But yeah, it comes out later this year. Next up, hey, you know, another game that keeps showing up in a lot of showcases. Beast of Reincarnation. Yep, it is also coming to PlayStation. We got a new trailer. This was more, like, the last trailer focused a little bit more on story. This was a little bit more of an action trailer. This was a lot less comprehensive than the Xbox One. But I actually liked the Xbox One more. The Xbox One spent longer, you know, with the devs talking about the game. And it was just more interesting. I liked the Xbox trailer more. Of course, the release date's August 4th. That hasn't changed. But yeah, it still looks good. I mean, nothing's really changed on that front. But yeah, it's just, again, one of those games that keeps showing up at every showcase. Except for Nintendo's, because it's not on Nintendo, but that's fine. I've seen some people mad about that, like, why is Game Freak not putting their game on Nintendo? I don't think it's that big of a deal. I really don't. Next up, Rayman's 30th anniversary. Hey, guess what? Rayman's back. You know, I know everything else in that works is kind of dead forever. But I guess, yeah, they're doing a new Rayman. It's specifically 30th anniversary. It's of the original game. It's going to have the original release. It's going to have an updated version. So you can play them both. It's going to include a prototype. Again, I'm always down for some lost media. It's going to have a whole digital museum with an interactive documentary. Again, people like behind-the-scenes stuff. If you're a fan of the franchise, you're going to like that sort of thing. And it came out the next day. You know, the showcase was on the 12th. It came out the 13th. They are doing a physical release later in June. But if you want to go play Rayman's 30th anniversary, you can go do that right now. I think this came out for other systems as well. I admittedly did not double check that one, but I would not at all be surprised if it came out on, you know, Nintendo and Xbox and everything else under the sun. I don't know, obviously, but I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, okay, I just looked it up on Nintendo's website and it's right there. How much? $20. Okay, that's not terrible. Next up, hey, guess what? Mina the Hollower's here. We got a new trailer. The PlayStation trailer was specifically to announce that the demo that came to Switch a few months ago, like 6 months ago now, is now going to be coming to PlayStation. The demo will release on PlayStation. It came out today. It is also a limited time demo, but if you played the demo that came out on Switch, from what it sounds like, it's the exact same demo. It's the opening of the game up until the first boss fight. However, we did get a development update from Yacht Club that, on top of what was in the state of play, they did also post on Twitter. Let me just read the exact tweet. I think I wrote it down somewheres. Here it is. The wait is almost over. Mina the Hollower launches spring 2026. That they do not have a release date. I really feel like they should have come into this showcase with a release date. But again, prior contracts, they probably agreed with PlayStation. They do a trailer. Maybe they expected to have a release date by this point, and they're just not as certain. But it's kind of weird that we got nothing. But whatever. Again, take as long as you need. It's just weird. So yeah, Mina the Hollower launches spring 2026 on PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch 2, Nintendo Switch, Xbox Series X, and Steam. After more than 6 years of work, we are in the final stretches. Mina is our most ambitious game ever. Its massive, densely interconnected world spans dozens of distinct regions and contains more total screens than the entirety of Shovel Knight Treasure Trove. Across the world, you will face more than 25 bosses and mini-bosses, discover 60 trinkets, upgrade your weapons, grow stronger through a full level-up system, explore New Game Plus, and experiment with hundreds of gameplay modifiers. Bring a game of this scope and density to the state of... Bringing a game of this scope and density to a state of final polish has taken time, but the end is now in sight. We will announce the exact release date once all console submissions are complete and the launch is fully locked in. In the meantime, the PlayStation demo goes live tomorrow. It includes the opening of the game through the first major boss, and progress carries over to the full release. This will be the final public demo, so make sure to hollow in. So yeah, I've already played that demo. It's not a bad demo. It's definitely different than what I was expecting. Like, it plays just a little differently than how I was expecting it. Because I was kind of expecting, like, Link's Awakening. And it is that, but it's a little different. I don't know. This is really just, I want the game to come out and I can sink my teeth into it. Because playing the little demo, I do not feel like it gave me, like, the full... scope of what it is. Maybe I also just chose the wrong weapon as well. I think I chose the whip, and the whip did not go over that well. I had some issues. But yes, I'm very interested in Mina the Hollower when it comes out. It'll be out here in... spring. So that's the next, 2 months. I hope it succeeds. Yacht Club Games, in their recent interview, sit down with Jason Schreier, they did make it pretty clear that if this game doesn't do well, that's the end of the studio. And I don't want that to be the case. I want them to continue to be successful, because they have done some really good stuff. Sure, they did some stuff I didn't really care for, but they've done a lot of really good stuff. Next up, we got some Neva. If you don't remember, Neva was a game that released, a few years ago. And it was one of those, scary world indie games about a woman and her wolf traveling through the scary world. And it looked fine. I don't know. I kind of been burned by a similar game, Gris, which might have been made by the same development team. I kind of don't remember. But because of that, I never really checked out Neva. But yeah, it's, they're doing prologue. Whether this is a DLC or a brand new game, I was a little bit unsure. But it comes out in 3 days or 4 days. But yeah, I don't know. Neva has always been on my radar. I've heard good things. I think Tim Geddes really liked it. So it was always one of those things that where I was like, I'll check it out eventually. But I have a lot of games like that. That this is a good indie game that I'll check out eventually. Next up is Yakai Shinobi Ops. So this is the extraction shooter I was thinking of. So it's not an extraction shooter, but it's a stealth extraction game. So this is a game where you're playing as ninjas. And you're breaking into somebody's mansion. You know, it's not a shooter, it's stealth gameplay. But you're using the stealth gameplay to try and, you know, extract somebody. It's an extraction shooter. This is a game I would never play, but yeah, you know, doing an extraction shooter style game, but using a different game type, that sounds like a good idea. I get that, you know, trying to do something a little different. It comes out in 2027, so it's still a ways away, but yeah, I'm always down for some variety. Next up is Project Windless. This is a game made by Krafton, who, if you don't know who Krafton is, they were in the news, you know, the past few months for screwing over the Subnautica devs. And this is their new game. It definitely has roots in China. It's based on a book. And the big thing that stands out about this is that you're a chicken man. You're like an anthropomorphic chicken man. Gameplay-wise, it looks to be like a warrior-style game, you know, like the Dynasty Warriors or the Hyrule Warriors. It seems to be that style. It doesn't look that bad, honestly. But, you know, I don't really trust Krafton that much. But yeah, no, this does not look terrible. It was just got, you know, the chicken man kind of comes out of nowheres. There's been a lot of chicken stuff recently in gaming. I don't know why, but it's all over the place. Next off, they showed off more of Star Wars Galactic Racers. If you don't remember, this is, you know, well, we're not getting a new Star Wars pod racing game. This is sort of a spiritual successor. What has me interested is that it's the developers of the Burnout series. Who, you know, I've been a defender of Burnout Paradise. I do like that game. I haven't played it in over 10 years. But I do like Burnout Paradise. I want to replay it again. I was thinking about that. I don't know, probably around when Mario Kart World got revealed. But yeah, this is, you know, they showed off specifically in the trailer that, hey, there is going to be pod racing in this game. So for those of you who want more, you know, Episode 1 pod racer, yep, that is going to be a thing. And then, of course, they do show Ben Quadanaro. If you don't know, Ben Quadanaro is, you know, best pod racer this side of the Moisture Farms. He's a Star Wars glub shitto, but he's one of the more famous Star Wars glub shittos. Him and, you know, Baba Freet. And, you know, it's just one of those memes. Ben Quadanaro is a meme. Everybody knows it. And yeah, the trailer, at least for its, like, final shot, leans into it. And, you know, that gets, like, already hearing that, hey, we're getting more Star Wars pod racer, that's already enticing to people. But yeah, putting Ben Quadanaro in there, of course that likes people. I saw someone, like, earlier today or yesterday made a thing about how the original, like, Glub Shitto post has, rightfully so, done more damage to Star Wars fans than anything else. And it's what they deserve. And yeah, honestly, I couldn't agree more. As someone who loved Star Wars, keyword being the past tense there, loved. I'm so fucking over it. And of course that game comes out later this year. We don't have a release date, but hopefully at some point later this year. Next up, 007 First Light. Oh wow, here's another game I'm fucking sick of. The fucking James Bond game. I'm so tired of this. It's funny because I like the Hitman games. Sure, I only ever played the first of the modern reboot. I've only ever played the first one. But I really liked it. I've loved watching Let's Plays of the other two. And yet, I'm just so sick of this James Bond game. Every trailer just doesn't sell it for me. And so, yeah, I'm not really interested in it, and I'm kind of sick of seeing it, but we're going to keep seeing it. Part of it is because it shows up everywheres. Yeah, it still comes out May 27th. Nothing's new. And then we get the Konami segment. So, like, earlier in the show stopped to be like, hey, here's the Capcom segment. We're going to show you a few Capcom games. And then right here, the show stops again, and it's like, hey, we're going to show you a few Konami games. And now, doing a segment all based around one developer is one of those things that, you know, it's high risk, high reward. If the developer has a bunch of big announcements, it's going to work great. But if they don't really have anything to show, then it won't. You know, it'll just flop, and you'll just waste time. The Capcom segment earlier kind of felt like that. Like, yeah, you know, we've seen Pragmata, we've seen Resident Evil. They didn't have anything new for Street Fighter. So, I was kind of whatever. The Konami segment, on the other hand, fucking delivered. Admittedly, I would have changed the order a little bit. But outside of that, no. I think the Konami segment was good. So it started off with Metal Gear Solid Master Collection 2. I think they also... So yeah, the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 2 includes Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriot, and Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. This is the first time Metal Gear Solid 4 will be playable on something other than the PS3, because that was a PS3 exclusive. It never left the PS3. That's nice. I mean, getting that game off that onto the other systems, that alone makes this worth it. Of course, it includes other stuff as well. You know, it's got all those nice little digital collectibles. I guess in the original Volume 1 collection, they included one of the Game Boy games. And so this collection also includes one of the Metal Gear Solid Game Boy games, specifically Ghost Battle. I know nothing about it. I legitimately could not tell you a single thing about it. But hey, it's cool that they do stuff like that. And then they also announced that the original collection, Volume 1, is getting an update. So on PS5, on Switch 2, presumably Xbox as well, they're improving the resolution. The update's available today, as well as Delta, the Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta remake, is got 50% off. I've never played a Metal Gear game. I've admitted this in the past. I doubt that will change anytime soon, but I know Metal Gear is hype. It kind of felt like they were leading up towards a new Metal Gear. That's not what happened, though. Instead, they showed off the Darwin Project. So Darwin Project is the game where you play as an octopus. It honestly, I think it doesn't look bad. As someone who likes a good puzzle game, I don't think Darwin Project is actually that bad. And yeah, it got a playable demo that is Metal Gear Solid themed. And so here's the thing, and we'll talk about this more at the end. If they had just announced, hey, guess what, Darwin Project, it's getting a Metal Gear Solid demo, people would have been like, fuck this. But the fact that they also announced, you know, Remake Collection Volume 2, that softens that blow. People are a lot more lenient now that they know, like, hey, we're getting these remakes as well as something new. So this is the right way to do that announcement. And so, yeah, I think it all works out. Darwin Project, I still think looks interesting. It comes out April 2nd, so it comes out in just a few months. And yeah, I don't think it looks bad at all. I've heard the demo's actually pretty good. I have not played it. I think it's PlayStation only. But I've heard it's good. Oh, and then the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection 2 comes out in August 27th. Next up, they went to Castlevania. So at some point a few months ago, I don't remember when, At some point, I made the realization that it's been over 10 years since the last new Castlevania game. For the most part, they've just been putting out collections and doing, like, collaborations. We have not had a new Castlevania in over 10 years. I want to say since the 3DS. Finally, for the first time, we're getting a new Castlevania to celebrate Castlevania's 40th anniversary. And on top of that, it is being developed by Evil Empire and Motion Twin. If you do not recognize those names, those are the developers behind Dead Cells, who was a game that had a Castlevania collab. Because, you know, Dead Cells was a roguelite Metroidvania, and now the developers are just letting them straight up make a 2D Metroidvania Castlevania game. This, for me personally, is the best project to come out of this whole direct. I know there's another Metroidvania in here, we'll talk about it, but I love Dead Cells. Dead Cells is maybe one of my favorite games of all time. I love Dead Cells. And so the idea that, you know, the developers behind Dead Cells, both of them, because that was another thing, I swear to God at some point there was a falling out between Evil Empire and Motion Twin. I didn't look it up, but I swear to God that happened at some point. But even with that, the fact that they're coming together to make a Castlevania game is amazing. You know, this is one of your, like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if, like, this indie studio made this, like, AAA franchise game? You know, like, whenever I say that, like, oh, let Yacht Club make a Mario game. Or, you know, a Zelda game. Or let the Hollow Knight devs make an actual Metroid game. That's what this is like. This is like letting the fans make, you know, a studio we can trust make a mainline game. This is an amazing announcement. This is perfect. It's perfect. And so it's called Belmont's Curse. It's all about Trevor Belmont's, like, granddaughter or something is our main character. It takes place, you know, years after the events of Castlevania. Is it 3? Is Trevor 3? I don't remember. I don't entirely know the Castlevania timeline. It's kind of a fucking mess. But this looks fantastic. It's coming out later this year, because again, 40th anniversary. The only difference is... Wait, where was I going with that? I don't know. It's coming out later this year. That's great. And it's coming to Xbox and Switch. Not Switch 2, at least not yet. But it's at least coming to OG Switch and Xbox. I don't know. Honestly, I'm totally interested in this. Because I'm not a big... When it comes to Metroidvania, I like the Metroid aspect. I have never been a Castlevania fan. Like, yeah, I played the original on NES. I've never played Symphony of the Night. Mainly because they never fucking released it on Switch. Yeah, they made a, you know, Symphony of the Night remake collection. And then only ever released it on PlayStation for some fucking reason. The other Castlevania collections came to Switch, but not the Symphony of the Night one. PlayStation still has Symphony of the Night exclusivity. For some fucking reason. You should fix that for the 40th anniversary, Konami. Fucking... There is no reason Symphony of the Night should be PlayStation only. But it is. So, like, fucking what are you gonna do? Because then, if you put it on Switch, then maybe I'd give it a chance. But no, I think this is a fantastic announcement. This is a dream announcement. Next up, we got new Silent Hill game, Silent Hill Townfall. So this is being developed by Annapurna, or at least, you know, produced by Annapurna. That's great. That's good. It's going back to first-person roots, so this will be a first-person Silent Hill game, and it comes out later this year. I don't know, I'm not exactly a big Silent Hill fan, so I wouldn't know what to make of it this way or that. But, hey, you know, some people seem to be excited for this. I don't know, people like Silent Hill F. I know people like the 2 remake. And then they ended off the Konami segment with Rev.Noir. This is an anime game. It's all about, like, oh, the main character won't accept the ending. Probably some, like, time travel bullshit in there. Gameplay-wise, it looks like... I heard other people compare it to Final Fantasy 15. So, I'm just gonna assume that's a decent comparison. But it's not, you know, like that other game I mentioned earlier that I've already forgotten. This isn't, like, a continuation of an old Konami series. This is a brand new IP. Which, hey, you know, brand new IP is good. It's just, this is like a weird announcement to end on. If I had reordered the Konami segment, I would have put this in the middle. Like, maybe put this right after Darwin Project. Because this is the least interesting of all these announcements. And yeah, that was the Konami segment. Honestly, a pretty good segment. Like, even Rev Noir, you know, for as much as little interest in it as I do have, is not, like, terrible by any means. So after that, we go into John Wick. Hey, they're making a new John Wick game. The last John Wick game I heard was actually pretty... I think it was John Wick Hexed. I know people liked that. At first I was worried, like, oh, is this just going to be a CGI trailer? Like, you know, all pre-rendered cutscenes? No, we did actually get gameplay. And yeah, this one seems to be, you know, more traditional, like what you'd expect when you say John Wick. It's being done by Saber Interactive as well. Which, I mean, there were studios you could have doing this. Next up, they showed off Marathon. This is, you know, the new Bungie game that after being delayed because of copyright infringement. Sure, let's put it like that. It's finally coming out. They're going to be doing what they call a server slam, you know, a beta preview weekend at the end of the month. February 26th through March 2nd, and then the game comes out March 5th. Again, Marathon is very much make or break for Bungie, right? Bungie, I think, had to cancel one of their recent projects, so this is very much make or break for them. Because they got bought up by PlayStation, so is this the third time Bungie dies? We'll see. Next up, they did like a whole like thing talking about like PS Plus, where they went over like a bunch of games coming to like PS Plus, you know, I think it was like Dino Crisis or something like that. The only one I wanted to point out was Big Walk. So Big Walk is the newest game by House. If you do not know House, they are the developers of Untitled Goose Game. And years ago at the Game Awards, they announced their next game, Big Walk, which is about, you know, you and your friends going on a big walk. And that was it. We hadn't heard anything about it since, and that was like 2021. But here we are, finally. It's coming out later this year, and it will be a PlayStation Plus monthly game. So if you have PS Plus, it will be included with PS Plus all tiers. You know, no matter which tier you're at. Which, you know, PlayStation's done that before. I think they did it with Foam Stars. They did it with Bug Snacks, Game of the Year. So, yeah, you know, that thing can work out. I mean, I was probably going to check it out anyways, but now this is, you know, a good excuse to actually check it out. Because, I liked Untitled Goose Game. And I was curious to see what they were working on next. I like a short hike. If this is, you know, short hike but multiplayer, I mean, there are worse games out there. Next up, they talked about Soros. So they talked more about like some of the roguelike elements. That specifically there's going to be a permanent progression system in the game. So you're going to be able to upgrade your attributes, get special perks, and adjust modifiers. Basically, if you've ever played Hades, it's going to work like that, at least from my understanding. Which, to be honest, I think is the right way to do things. Because one of the things that makes Hades so special as a roguelike is that it's a roguelike that is very much designed to be beaten. That no matter how good you are at roguelikes, you know, even if you're awful at them, you will eventually beat Hades. There are systems in place designed to make that game beatable, even if you have to turn on like an assist mode. And so I kind of hope the same is true here, that even if you're not great at roguelikes, there are still systems in place designed to make this one beatable. Because I'm very hit or miss when it comes to roguelikes. You know, for as good as I am with some of them, I'm awful at others. Binding of Isaac is a great example. I love Binding of Isaac. I am awful at it. I talk about how I love Dead Cells. Once you get to some of those, you know, once you start having multiple cells, I cannot beat it. Like, I have never 100%ed Dead Cells, because at higher levels, it's just too hard. Once you start throwing on more cells, I can't do it anymore. I should play Dead Cells again. It's been a while. But also, if I ever plan on playing Hades, like Hades 2 eventually, I learned very early on, those two games do not mix. Because when I was playing Hades 1, I was also playing Dead Cells, and I kept mixing up the control schemes for both games. And it fucked with my brain so bad that I had to give up on Dead Cells to beat Hades. But no, Soros looks good. We got more stuff, right? We see, like, it's got this Carcassonne modifiers. So basically, you can put on these modifiers. And some make the game easier, but others make the game harder. And basically, you can put on these modifiers, but you have to, like, find a balance. Where, oh, if I put on this modifier that makes the game easier, if it costs, like, too many points, I also have to put on a modifier to make the game harder to balance it out. That's interesting. I do wonder about some of the accessibility stuff, obviously, but overall, I do think that's very interesting. And then they talked about how, hey, as you play through the game and you unlock new biomes, you'll be able to teleport back to new biomes and basically pick up a run, like, in the area you left off, which any seasoned roguelike fan can tell you. Never do that. Like, it sounds good on paper, being able to, like, skip floors or skip areas, but at the end of the day, the upgrades you get are more than needed. And you should never skip areas, right? Like, in Enter the Gungeon, or... what's the cave one? A Splunky. In, like, Enter the Gungeon and Splunky, you never skip floors, because you always will need those upgrades that you skip out on. Admittedly, I'm not a big Splunky guy, but that's just because I haven't played it that much. Next, oh yeah, and the release date it's April 30th. It comes out the end of April. Next up, they talked about Marvel took on Fighting Souls. So they specifically talked about the X-Men. That this was all about the X-Men. So we got to see Storm, who we already knew about. I mean, I've played as her. She was in the demo. Or the alpha or whatever. We got to see Magic, who's being revealed. Magic is on a glow-up this year. Magic is slowly rising up in popularity. And you know what? Fully deserved. She's great. Wolverine is coming to the game. Of course Wolverine is. And finally, Danger. I do not know that much about Danger. They're X-Men supporting cast. They're, I think, Shi'ar? They're alien. She's an alien robot. I do not know much about Danger, but that's why I like the pick. I like when Marvel leans into some of its more, you know, lesser talked about, more obscure characters. And, you know, Marvel Rivals has done that a lot. I love that they're given, like Elsa Bloodstone. Like, where else would Elsa Bloodstone get representation? I mean, yes, she's in the MCU, but that's not much. So yeah, them giving Danger a spotlight here, that's great. Totally interested in that. They talked about the whole Ultimate Edition, that, hey, when the game comes out, you know, you can buy the Ultimate Edition that comes with the first DLC pack. That'll have I think it's like 4 characters in one stage, as well as some bonus costumes, and that when the game comes out, it'll have 20 playable characters. So because the whole game is built around teams, it looks like it's going to be, you know, 5 different teams of 4 characters each. So, you know, you're going to have the X-Men team. And then there's probably going to be an Avengers team, which has, you know, Captain America, Iron Man, probably Hulk and Thor. You're going to maybe have I could see them doing a Guardians of the Galaxy team, which has, you know, Star-Lord, or maybe like a space team. I could see them doing a villain team that has, you know, Doctor Doom and whoever else they decide to add. I could see them doing a Champions team. You know, maybe they add in Miles Morales. Maybe they add in Nova. Of course, Spider-Man, you know, could be on one of the teams. I don't know, however they end up doing it. It seems like it's going to be team-based. Which we already know, right? It's 4 players, you know, 4-player fighting game. I was in the closed alpha. It's too much for me. I cannot play that game because just too much is going on. Admittedly, the closed alpha was very fucking laggy. It had some issues, but as like someone who is not a experienced fighting game player, I was struggling with that game. Admittedly, I might have just only played against, you know, people who knew what they were doing. But I was just getting my ass kicked so hard. I'm so fucking bad at that game. It seems to be a lot to do. It's a lot to balance. I was not having a good time, but I hope other people have a good time with it. There's an original story. It looks like they're going to have an original story with a story mode. That's great. And then we finally did get a release date of August 6th. So yeah, I know there were some people who didn't even think the game was going to come out this year. Which, to be fair, was a possibility. But it's good that it is. They did not announce a new, like, closed alpha or closed beta or anything. Nothing new like that. I'm sure another one will happen, but probably closer to release date. Hopefully by then they'll have fixed some of the netcode issues, because it was bad. And then for our final announcements, they started off, hey, it's Sony Santa Monica, God of War, God of War 2, God of War 3. They're doing the God of War trilogy, and it's going to be a full remake. So they're not just porting over God of War trilogy, they're going to be remaking them. Now, what type of remake this is, who knows? Is this like a Twilight Princess remake, where they're just, you know, taking the base game and making it look better? Or is this going to be, you know, a Final Fantasy VII remake, where they're like fully changing the gameplay to make it play more like modern day, you know, God of War games. Which I'd actually be down for that. If they like break it up and are like, yeah, we're gonna make the new God of War play like the old God of War play like the new one, I'd actually be fine with that. Because from what I can tell, most people actually prefer how modern day God of War plays over the old ones. Yeah, I'd be fine with that, all things considered. Of course, they bring out T.C. Carson, who is the original voice of Kratos, and he is coming back as well. That's good. that's good. And then they did say this is just an early development. That this just started development, so don't expect anything anytime soon, but they will be working on it. So I've talked about this in the past, but Todd Howard and Bethesda realized that if you're going to make an announcement that, you know, people don't like as much, that people are less interested in, you should accompany it with a bigger announcement that people are interested in. Sometimes it works out great. You know, Todd Howard knew that people weren't going to love the Fallout mobile game, so they also announced Fallout 4 at the same time. Great idea, worked out really well. However, the next year, they then announced the Elder Scrolls mobile game, and then announced Elder Scrolls 6, which, like 9 years later, still hasn't come out. So it's one of those things where it's like, if you do it right, it works great. However, it is easy to fuck up. And so that's kind of what this announcement felt like. Is that Sony Santa Monica was like, hey, we know people aren't really going to care that much for this next announcement. At least not in principle, because it's not like their other games. So let's accompany it with an announcement that people might care about, which is the God of War trilogy. That's my guess as to why they announced this right now, even though it is in early development. Because they know that people just aren't going to care about this next one. And saying like, hey, God of War trilogy is coming, will entice people to eventually, you know, potentially play this. So the other big announcement we got is God of War Sons of Sparta. So if you're not in the rumor mill, which I don't blame you, honestly, it's the best way to live when it comes to game announcements. Don't pay attention to the rumor mill. But for a long time now, the rumor mill has been talking about a 2D Metroidvania God of War game. You know, we've heard about it for a while now, and so it was just like, oh, you know, when was it going to be announced? The original rumor was that it was going to be announced last year, and then because of, you know, circumstances, it got basically delayed. But now here we are, it has finally been revealed, God of War Sons of Sparta. So this is a 2D Metroidvania God of War game. It follows a young Kratos and his brother Deimos. As you know, they are Spartan trainees, dealing with all sorts of monsters and whatnot. It is a pixel art style. I don't remember the studio, so it's obviously Sony Santa Monica's working on it. The studio they're supporting them with, I don't remember their name, but it's the studio that made the FNAF Into the Pit. That's where I recognize them from. So, you know, they've at least worked on pixel art before. I admittedly was not expecting this game to have a pixel art style. If I had guessed, I would have assumed this game would have looked like, kind of like Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time. I was not expecting pixel art. But yeah, they're doing pixel art. I don't think the pixel art is terrible. I've seen some people definitely disagree with that. I've seen some people be like, no, the pixel art is bad. I don't think it looks that bad. I think some people just don't like pixel art. And it does kind of not mesh with the God of War style. I'll give them that. But no, I don't hate this announcement at all. I do like a good Metroidvania. Will I be playing this? Not anytime in like the imminent future, but maybe I'll get around to it one of these days. It starts off the trailer and it's like coming out 2026. And then the 2026 gets wiped away and it's coming today or available today. That's another good... Honestly, if they hadn't announced the God of War trilogy, but instead just been like, hey, this new thing is coming out today, I feel like that would have been enough for some people to give this a chance. Like, that alone is big enough to, you know, win some people over. It makes sense. You know, we've been hearing about this for a long time now. it coming out today, I think is good. I do not know if this game is good. I have not... Let me check OpenCritic. How are people feeling about this? I do not know what the vibe is. I think the idea of 2D Metroidvania is not a terrible idea. But if this isn't reviewing well, I would not be surprised. Ooh, I mean, again, okay, it's currently got a 75 after, oh, it's only 6 reviews. Okay, that's nothing. That's nothing, 6 reviews. Nor, you know, again, a 75 is not terrible, but in the gaming industry, for a PlayStation first-party game, that's like the lowest you'll ever see. I mean, 70 is. Like, even just, you know, pulling up the front page of OpenCritic, I don't see anything lower than a 71. I mean, it's basically the same, it's the same score as Mario Tennis, which, God, we'll talk about that. And I'm out. Fuck. But yeah, that was the announcement they ended on. And overall, I would say that's a pretty decent state of play. I mean, just reading off all the announcements back to back, a lot of them are this year. You know, not everything is this year, but a fair chunk of them are. Yeah, reading all the announcements, that's not bad. That's not bad at all, PlayStation. You had a good chunk of stuff to show. I'd say overall, again, I really liked that Xbox showcase. Am I biased? Definitely. Definitely I'm biased. But this was also a really good PlayStation showcase. They had some really good announcements. Even if everything didn't appeal to me, there was plenty of stuff that did. I was, you know, like I said, the Castlevania one, that's the huge one for me. I'm super interested in that Castlevania announcement. But everything else was also, you know, pretty solid. Yeah, we also had a bunch of other really solid announcements in here. And yeah, if I had to give it a score, I'd probably give it like a 9. Yeah, I'd give it like a 9. I think that was, again, really solid. Not everything was perfect, but overall it had a good flow. It had a good, like, level of announcements. Like, you know, I wasn't bored during the showcase as well. Overall, PlayStation did a really good job. So yeah. So that's my one bit of, you know, gaming stuff. So let's get to WIBE. So for WIBE, I got 3 food things. 2 of them are kind of related because we are in... Valentine's Day is over. We're now in St. Patrick's Day season. You know, every place has to do a green shake. So we're now in St. Patrick's Day season, and we're getting our green stuff. So we got, you know, Shamrock Shake. We got Jack in the Box is doing their green shake, but they're doing a little differently this year. And then we have Weinerschnitzel, which I don't really talk about Weinerschnitzel too often, but a spoiler alert, I really liked what they were offering. Again, we'll talk about it. So those are our 3 food things. I then have 2 video games. I've played the new Mario Tennis, and I played Edmund McMullen's new game, Mewgenics. You know, currently like one of, if not the highest rated games of the year. And so I do want to talk about both of them, even if I don't actually have that much to say on either. I do want to at least talk about them. And then we got to talk about the movie Goat. I got a fair few things to say on that, because, yeah, I saw it early, and I've just kind of been sitting on it, And finally, you know, I'm going to talk about it. And then we got the Bobiverse stuff. You know, I've been talking about Bobiverse over with Animal Crossing, but we'll at least talk about it a little bit. I don't know if I'm going to leave off. I'll probably just do a little bit of everything, honestly. And then if we have time, I'll talk about Animal Crossing and I'll talk about Power Wash. But if we wrap everything up smoothly in the next, like, 40 minutes, that would also be very nice. Because I'm going to guess that's how much time we have left. Because we're going to beat this area, which we're almost done with, and we'll do a few nighttime missions. So let's start off with Jack in the Box. So, you know, early on in January, I kind of talked about how every fast food place was doing something. Because there are certain times where, you know, every fast food place will put out their new stuff. Early January, you know, right after Christmas tends to be one. Another time tends to be right after Valentine's Day. Because right after Valentine's Day, you know, a lot of places start doing a mint shake. That's become a trend in recent years, is everyone does a mint shake. But also, people start putting out stuff for Lent. Specifically, fish sandwiches. Everyone has a fish sandwich. I do not like fish, so I will not be talking about any of the fish sandwiches. But just know, every place is doing a fish sandwich or some sort of fish thing. Jack in the Box falls under Camp 1. You know, they're doing a St. Patrick's Day thing. They probably have a fish thing as well. Plus, they did a few other things. See, there's 100% of the area. The other big thing Jack in the Box did is they have a new hot mess cheeseburger. So this is a cheeseburger. It's on sourdough bread, which is already interesting. But it's got jalapenos, it's got onion rings, and then it doesn't have like slices of cheese. Instead, it has like a white cheese sauce as well as mayo. Now, I'm going to be honest, the white cheese sauce I don't actually think is that strong. Either that or the people who made my sandwiches went in very heavy on the mayo. And it was a little bit indistinguishable because fuck, man, if you do not like mayo on a sandwich, especially on a burger, you will not like this burger. This burger, again, it has like a white cheese sauce on it, but it was also very mayo forward. Again, at least the one I had a lot of mayo. I know some people don't like mayo. Personally, I'm fine with it. I like good mayo on a sandwich. Oh yeah, we should also do these. So yeah, I like good mayo on a sandwich. So I thought this was fine. Again, they call it a hot mess because, you know, you bite into it and like you get that goop of the cheese sauce and the mayo. The onion rings are nice. I'm not a big Jack in the Box onion ring guy. I'm not a big onion ring guy to begin with. I guess they are testing out loaded onion rings down in San Antonio, but I ain't driving down to San Antonio to try them out. But yeah, it was overall, it was a decent burger. It was decent. It wasn't anything amazing, but it also wasn't anything terrible. I thought it was fine. It described itself as a hot mess, and it burned the shit out of the roof of my mouth. I'll also give it that, yeah. Like, oh god, the roof of my mouth is still kind of burnt from... And I had this thing yesterday. Technically, it doesn't come out until tomorrow, but, you know, it was here a day early, so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go try it out. Or, well, yesterday. So I guess 2 days early. But yeah, I thought it was fine. I liked it. They also have sauced and loaded wedges, as well as hot mess loaded wedges. You know, it's the wedges. It's their wedge fries with, you know, cheese, bacon, or if you get the hot mess one, the white cheese and the jalapenos. It's fine. Here's the thing. I like Jack in the Box's loaded cheese fries, but I don't really care for the wedges. I feel like the wedges lean too much into the potato. Because I think with loaded fries, there is a perfect balance between potato and, like, toppings. And loaded fries usually can do that. Potato wedges, on the other hand, don't. They're too much potato. The other loaded fries we'll talk about in a little bit are much better at this. But yeah, they were okay. They were, they're nothing amazing. They were fine. And finally, most places do some sort of, St. Patrick's Day, like a mint shake. Like traditionally, this all started with McDonald's, which we'll talk about the Shamrock Shake in a second. But, most places do a Shamrock Shake equivalent. I love the original Shamrock Shake. Again, we'll talk about it. The second best one, though, is usually Arby's. Arby's also does a pretty good Shamrock Shake. They do like an Andy's mint one. But then I would have to say potentially the third best is Jack in the Box traditionally. But this year, they shook it up. And instead of doing a Shamrock Shake, they did a matcha shake. So you still have that green color, but it's matcha flavored. Admittedly, it's also Oreo flavored. So it's an Oreo matcha shake. Now, I'll be honest, I don't really drink matcha. I'm not a tea guy. I have not really had I don't go to Starbucks and get matcha. I don't go to Starbucks at all. Not judging, just, saying it like it is. I'm not a tea guy. I'm not a coffee guy. And so, well, yes, I do commend Jack in the Box for doing something different. I'll give them full marks on that. They didn't just go the traditional, mint that most other places do. Nothing wrong with mint either. It's just, I'll commend them. However, I did not care for this. Maybe it's because I'm not really a tea guy that I'm not a big matcha guy either. But it tasted very earthy, and that's not really a flavor I want in a shake. I know some people's Starbucks drinks are basically just shakes, but that's not really a flavor I want. And yeah, I didn't really care for this. I did finish it, which is more than I can say about some other places, Sonic Burger. But this just wasn't for me. I hope, people who like matcha, I hope they do like it. But this just wasn't for me. I was reading the thing wrong. I thought the Pikmin we were missing was at the faucet. No, we gotta go to the other side of the map. I fucked up there. But yeah, the Oreo I hope other people like it. It wasn't for me. I'm not gonna get this again. I probably won't even touch Jack in the Box for another month. But yeah. So I guess that takes us to its direct competitor, the Shamrock Shake. The Shamrock Shake is a classic. Honestly, it's never even really been that strong of a mint shake. Like, if you want a mint shake, you go to Arby's. Get their Andy's Thin Mint. That's mint forwards. The Shamrock Shake, yeah, it's mint, but it's never been too heavy on the mint. It's always been, it's got that vanilla flavoring. It's also kind of unique in that way. It kind of tastes like nothing else, but I love that. I love a good Shamrock Shake. And man, when I was sick and it was like, fuck, everything sucks right now, having a good Shamrock Shake, oh, I loved it so much. Did I almost throw up afterwards? Yeah, but it was so worth it, man. It was so fucking good. I love the Shamrock Shake. At most, I'll get, a lot of people, there's a lot of people who love the McRib, the Ribbler, all that stuff. I'm not a McRib guy. I'm a Shamrock Shake guy. And it's so good. It is so good. And they're also doing the Oreo McFlurry. I didn't bother with that. I just got a Shamrock Shake and it was everything I wanted. Now, outside of Jack in the Box and Arby's, another contender for competition this year is Wendy's. Tomorrow, Wendy's is re-releasing their Thin Mint McFlurry. So, Yeah, that's another good contender. Again, it's a little different, but it's still good. So if you're at all interested in that, and some sort of new bacon burger or something comes out tomorrow. And our final thing is Weinerschnitzel. So if you don't, Weinerschnitzels, from what I can tell, are kinda, they're not everywhere. There's at least some here in Texas where I am. They're a hot dog place. Basically, they're the McDonald's of hot dogs. They're okay. If you're looking for like a cheap, like $2 hot dog, you're more or less gonna get what you pay for. They have a bunch of variety. You can get more expensive hot dogs, pretzel buns. They do cheese fries, so they do chili cheese fries and bacon ranch cheese fries. They do all that. They have a sister business, Tasty Freeze, which does all sorts of like ice cream things. And it's not terrible ice cream either. They do they had a Fruit Loop shake that I loved. But they're a little bit all over the place. But I guess I was reading up on it because I was curious. Back in like November of last year, they started doing, they basically, you have Weinerschnitzel, you've got Tasty Freeze, and then those places that were doing like ghost kitchens, where it's like, oh, this is a Denny's, but we also run like a Mr. Beast burger out of it, a ghost kitchen. I guess Weinerschnitzel, they're doing a third restaurant, which is a ghost kitchen for delivery places in their app called Bigfoot Loaded Fries. So it's Bigfoot fries. So it takes, the stuff at Weinerschnitzel and gets you like these big portions of loaded fries. So it's not just like normal chili cheese fries, but instead you've got, bacon, shredded cheddar, grilled onions, jalapenos, tomatoes, what's it called? Not Polish stock, pastrami? Is that the word I'm looking for? Basically it's like a large serving of their fries, but with a bunch of other stuff on them. And because I've actually been avoiding Weinerschnitzel because because they also do like the whole semi-monthly like food change up. But the last one they did was burgers. Weinerschnitzel, kind of like, remember when IHOP became International House of Burgers? Even though Weinerschnitzel's a hot dog place, they've always sold burgers, but like they're not good burgers, and they did a whole like refresh like back in like November, but I've just been ignoring them. And sure, they're doing like a fish dog right now, and I'm not gonna even acknowledge that. But when I saw the Bigfoot fries, I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Yeah, sure, let me try that. And guess what? At least, again, for a fast food loaded fry, I actually really enjoyed these. I'm admittedly a little biased. I like Weinerschnitzel's chili cheese fries. I think, normal fries on their own, not good. They give fucking In-N-Out Burger a run for their money on terribleness. But when you put, chili and cheese and bacon and ranch on that shit, it gets good. And so these loaded fries, also pretty good. They have 4 different varieties. They had the one I already described earlier. They've got a Philly cheesesteak one, which I didn't try. They've got an Irish nacho, which is bacon, shredded cheddar, grilled onions, jalapenos, tomatoes, ranch dressing. And that one wasn't bad either. Honestly, it's basically like a cheaper alternative to the other one. There's a few less things on it. There's no like Polish sausage. There's no hamburger. But it's basically the same thing. And yeah, it wasn't bad. It was not bad at all. And then the last one is Bacon Cheeseburger. So it's, again, a layer of fries, melted American cheese, chopped hamburger patty, bacon, tomato, pickle chips, ketchup, mustard, and ranch dressing. And so I already know, I said, Weinerschnitzel's not a burger place. But to my own surprise, this actually worked really well. Out of all the things I had this week, if I were to recommend one of them, it would be this. Because, you know, I've had 100 Shamrock Shakes before, but I've never had these before. And yeah, I was not expecting these to be as good as they were. I was like genuinely like, oh wow, this was good. Even like the pickle chips. Like pickle chips on a loaded fry? That's a little weird. But no, it worked surprisingly well. I did genuinely really enjoy these and would totally recommend them. Again, I know Weinerschnitzel, they're more of a local thing, but if you've got one, it is more than worth it in my opinion. I was not expecting much, but yeah, again, from reading their press release, because I was curious, these fries seem to only be available either through like DoorDash, Uber Eats, or if you order them on your app. So you can't just like walk into the store and get them. But you know, I just used an app and it worked out fine. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. Honestly, since I've had them, I've already been wanting them again. Like if I could go back and get some more, I totally would. They were pretty good. Not expecting much, but genuinely being surprised. Yeah, they were pretty good. And I will totally, probably in the nearest future, go back again and get some more. So that's all the food stuff I have for this week. Pretty solid lineup. And I can tell you right now, there's going to be more next week. There is, again, Wendy's has a thing coming out tomorrow. I know other places are getting more of their stuff ready. So I will have more to talk about tomorrow. Or next week. But that's next week's problem. Alright, let's talk about Mario Tennis. So the new Mario Tennis game came out. I've admitted in the past, I'm not a Mario Tennis guy. I've actually never owned a Mario Tennis. I've played Aces, I played Ultra Smash, I played the Wii one? Did I play the Wii one? I don't know. The only way I would have played the Wii one is if my cousin owned it, and I genuinely cannot remember if she did. I'm not a big Mario Tennis guy. When it comes to the Mario sports games, the ones I like are the golf games. If you've never played Toadstool Tour on the 3DS, I think it was Toadstool Tour, that one is so worth your time. Mario Golf Toadstool Tour on the 3DS is a great Mario Golf game. You know, for all the problem with modern Mario sports games, Toadstool Tour is like the one exception. You know, in the past like 10 or 15 years. Toadstool Tour somehow was great. But yeah, you know, the reason why, even though I'm not a big Mario Tennis guy, I still picked up the new Mario Tennis, was I was just kind of in a vibe for it. You know, we got a new Switch, we have a new console. I was just kind of feeling like, yeah, you know, it's the same reason I picked up ARMS on the original Switch, is you're just kind of in this mood to play your new console as much as possible. And while, yes, I wish this game had been cheaper. Oh my gosh. This game should have been... If this game had been like $50, yeah, let's just say 50. Let's be generous and say 50. Generous on Nintendo's part, because it's Nintendo. But yeah, if this game had been $50, this would have been an easy recommendation. But at $70, it's a lot. But, you know, I had budgeted for it. I knew I was going to pick this one up for a while. Again, it was just kind of a vibe. But it wasn't like a spur-of-the-moment vibe. It's something I've been thinking about. But, so I picked it up. So far, I haven't had much time with it. I've been sick. I slept for like 20 hours. But I played it a little bit today. I started off the adventure mode. The adventure mode is kind of bullshit. So, obviously, when I started off the adventure mode, you know, you get this whole cutscene. Oh, Princess Daisy is sick. Yeah, Princess Daisy's actually doing something. Hey, you should go, you know, help Princess Daisy go find this rare fruit. And then along the way, Wario and Waluigi kind of fuck everything up. So now you're kind of on your own and you get turned into babies. So you're dealing with that as the plot. And so after being turned into babies, you have to learn, you know, you go to the tennis academy. Because if you can get really good at tennis, then you can beat the boss. Okay, you know, basic hook, whatever. I don't expect much. However, you then spend the next 2 hours in the tennis academy. And it's a cycle. You go into the training room, you do a mini game, you test out a new skill with the coach, you then go and do a practice match against, you know, a Toad, and then you do a rank-up match. Maybe sometimes you do a second mini game in there somewheres, but it is so fucking formulaic. It gives the new Pokemon game a run for its money on how formulaic it is. And to that end, it kinda sucks. You know, I don't expect the most amazing thing from an adventure mode in a Mario Tennis game. I guess, like, some of the older ones had a pretty decent, you know, adventure mode. I wasn't expecting anything amazing, but yeah, it's basically the first 2 hours of the adventure mode is a few mini games in 2 hours of tutorials on how to play tennis. And it kind of fucking sucks. It's not very good at it. I mean, yes, it is teaching me how to play tennis, and it is very much taking its sweet time doing that. But at least I know about, you know, as someone who, again, has not played a Mario Tennis game since, I guess, Aces. I probably played Aces the week it came out with a friend, and have never touched it again. But since then, yeah, I don't really think of Mario Tennis in high regard. I don't entirely know how the game works. But yeah, the adventure mode's kind of buns. Other than that, though, the actual tennis is fine. I haven't messed around. Again, I just got the game today. I have not messed around with it too much. I haven't seen, like, all the new modes. I haven't really experimented that much with it. But so far, what I've seen is fine. I like the fever rackets. I like that they have, you know, different special effects. They make tennis more interesting. We'll talk about the movie GOAT in a little bit. But my inherent problem with all the Mario Tennis games is that they're all just fucking tennis. When, you know, I want them to have, like, variety. Like, it was cool in the adventure mode. Again, it's not a major thing. But it was at least nice when it's like, hey, we're gonna go on this court, and this court is made of ice. That's the bare fucking minimum. But at least the fever rackets, you know, they give you power-ups that change how the game plays. I want that. I want the game to be different. I want things to change. And Mario Tennis Ultra Smash did fucking nothing. That's why that game is one of the worst games Nintendo's ever made. Aces was better. I mean, they kind of made it more like a fighting game, which I thought was interesting. But it didn't go that far. This game goes... This game goes just a little bit farther, which it needed to. I don't know how far it goes. I'm gonna have to get some water here. We're gonna do one more of these nighttime missions, and I'm gonna go get some water. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so far I have not played enough of it to see like how far it goes. I haven't tried out all the fever rackets. I've only done a few. But so far, yeah, I'm enjoying it enough. Oh my, at one point in the adventure mode, you have to, so there's like a Coach Toad. And I just could not beat this Coach Toad. I had what I would guess was at least a 50 rally with this Coach Toad. Because me and the AI Baby Luigi just could not beat him. He was so fucking fast. And usually, like, your session with the Coach Toad is like, hey, you know, try out the new mechanic you learned. That was not helping. Oh my god, I was fucking struggling with Coach Toad. And it was like the final bit of the academy was easier than this Coach Toad fight. It just all of a sudden randomly difficulty spiked. And then it got easy again. So after like 2 hours of the tennis academy, eventually you leave, and then you start trying to go back to, you know, where the cursed treasure was. But along the way, you know, you run into Bowser, Baby Wario, and Baby Waluigi betray you. Who the fuck knows what happened to Baby Peach? They haven't gotten that far yet. But no, like, once you leave the tennis academy, it at least changes things up a little bit. But it takes a full 2 hours of tutorials to get you there. You know, it's as bad as any Pokemon game you've never played. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I haven't checked out, like, the, you know, to see how the Wiimote works and stuff like that. I haven't really messed around with any of that stuff. But yeah, so far it's been fine. Is it worth $70? Fuck no. Especially with the whole story mode. No, the story mode definitely ain't worth it. But the rest of it, the actual, you know, main game, it's better. And yeah, at like $50, oh yeah, I'd be singing a different tune. But at 70, nah, it isn't worth it. I know the problem is Nintendo games never go on sale. Like, I would say if you can ever find this game on sale, it's worth it, potentially. But Nintendo games just don't go on sale. And I would not be surprised if this game never goes on sale. Because I don't think Aces ever did either. I don't think... The only Mario sports game I think I ever saw go on sale was Strikers Battle League. And that was probably only because that game performed so poorly that they eventually had to put it on sale. And, you know, because that's the only time you can tell when a Nintendo game performs bad, when they put it on sale. Because they're trying to recoup some of their lost profits. Oh shit, oh shit. Oh no, oh! We're in trouble. We are in trouble. Okay, I do want to talk about Mewgenics real quick. So if you don't know, Mewgenics is the new game from Binding of Isaac creator Edmund McMillan. And who's he working with? Is it Tyler something? Taylor? Whoever he's working with. Now, I've said before, I am a Binding of Isaac fan. Tyler Glale is his partner. I am a Binding of Isaac fan, even if I'm awful at the game. God, look how bad this all went. Ochi, you're gonna have to stall them all. If you can just stall everybody, we'll be fine. Fuck, this went bad. Yeah, I am a Binding of Isaac fan. I've just never been good at the game. I'm sure if I put enough time into it, I'd eventually get good, but I just never have. Instead, I really like the card game. The card game requires a lot less skill, and is also very good. If you've never played the Binding of Isaac card game, it's more than worth it. I haven't played it in a while. Not since, you know, the big expansion came out. But it was more than worth it last time I played it. I had a great time. But yeah, Binding of Isaac, I've never been good at. I've never really been a fan of Super Meat Boy either. I've never played The End Is Nigh. But, you know, there was a lot of hype around Mewgenics. I guess originally this was a game they had in 2012, and then it got canceled. But they always really liked the project, so finally... Oh, we failed at the last second. But We still did it. We should not have won that. We should have failed that. But yeah, Mewgenics is not a game I knew much about, besides for the creator. But I was still curious. And then it came out, and it was getting great reviews. It is so far like the highest reviewed game of the year. So I was very curious. You know, color me interested. But I hadn't actually watched any trailers. I had only heard about this game from like word of mouth and seeing like Edmund McMillan like do interviews on like podcasts and whatnot. I should have done more research. I did not realize this was a strategy game. A la, you know, Advanced Wars, Fire Emblem. The game that reminds me the most of is Into the Breach. Into the Breach is a great game, but I'm also fucking terrible at it. Alright, I'm gonna take a minute. I'm gonna go get some... you can hear it, I'm dying. I'm gonna go get some water, and then I guess we'll head into the Primordial Thicket. Yeah, I guess we'll head into the Primordial Thicket. Give me a minute. And we'll continue with Mewgenics and all the Bobiverse stuff. Alright, here we are. We're back. So we were talking about Mewgenics, right? I think we were. So yeah, going into this game, I did not realize this was a tactical strategy game. I don't know what I expected it to be. Did I expect it to be more like Bumbo? I don't think so. God, Bumbo was 2019? Really? Huh, I guess. So yeah, I didn't know what to expect. If I had known it was a tactical strategy game, again, like Into the Breach, like Fire Emblem, like XCOM, I don't know if I would have picked it up. Because historically, I'm very bad at those games. I don't hate them. You know, this isn't like rhythm games where I'm both bad at them and I kind of hate them because I'm bad at them. No, I like them in theory. I'm just bad at them. I've always struggled with Fire Emblem. I mean, the casual difficulty made things a little bit easier. At least I was able to beat Awakening. But, like, I've never been able to get into any other Fire Emblem game. Into the Breach, I played. I enjoyed enough, but not nearly as much as other people did. I fucking sucked at XCOM. XCOM's probably also another good comparison, I think. I sucked at XCOM, man. And then Advanced Wars I was okay at, but Advanced Wars is kind of a different story. Wargroove I was terrible at. I picked up the original, never picked up the sequel, because of how bad I was at the original. Fuck, man. But I picked up Mewgenics anyways, because I trust the creator, and who knows, maybe I'll actually be good at this one. Or, you know, maybe I'll put the time in place to actually be good. You never know. I mean, my first, like, run or two actually went fine. Like, nothing terrible happened. So you never know. But I'm not exactly, you know, holding out for some sort of, you know, heroic moment. I guess I should say. So what is Mewgenics about? Oh, also, there are controversies. I'm not going to get into any of that. I always talk about how when it comes to, like, death of the author, I'm a believer in some ways, but not in other ways. Like, specifically, when it comes to things like Harry Potter, I don't think you should read Harry Potter or go see the movies or go to the theme park, because that's money going into Joanne's pocket. And any money that you give to Joanne, she will just turn around and use to try to exterminate all trans people. This, though, the Mewgenics thing's a little different. I mean, because nobody controversial who, you know, just said the word meow in Mewgenics. They did not get paid, one. And two, they're not making any profit off of this. Right? Any profit made off Mewgenics is not going to them. So, I see the complication there. I'm personally fine with it. Again, it's all about money for me, and, like, no money from Mewgenics is going to, like, Chris Chan or the Kleins. I'm fine with that. That's the line I'm willing to draw in the stand. You know, I'm not holier than thou. Honestly, it's a miserable way to live. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say on that. With the actual game, so, you know, you start off, there's this crazy scientist who's breeding these cats. And so you have to breed the cats, they can inherit traits from other cats, and you go on runs out into different areas. So you have, like, the alleyway and the swamp. And you're fighting enemies, you're getting these, like, little roguelite rewards. There are elements of something like Slay the Spire. Or, yes, it's, again, it is roguelike at the end of the day. There are elements of that. So, you know, as you explore these areas, you find, you know, abilities, upgrades, your cats level up, there's a magic system. And yeah, you know, you're breeding cats to try to unlock new abilities, but you can also, you know, inbreed cats, allegedly, from what I've heard. Again, I've only put at most like 2 hours into it. I have not put that much time into it. so far, I thought it's been fine. You know, I've gotten strategy, you know, early on the game teaches you about like synergies, where it's like, oh, well, you can use this synergy to light things on fire, and because of this cat's special ability, fire will last longer. And then next thing I knew, the entire battlefield was on fire because the enemy had a rush ability, and while they were on fire, every tile they rushed through also lit on fire, and it just went into chaos. And next thing I knew, the entire thing was on fire. But I would guess that's pretty standard shit at this point. But yeah, so far, it's fine. You know, I haven't really struggled, but I definitely see with, like, you know, the traits you unlock, the upgrades you get, I see where the struggle will come from eventually. Because I didn't start off bad at Fire Emblem or Into the Breach. You know, things started off fine. And then eventually it all kind of cascaded until everything just kind of fell apart. And so I would not be surprised if the same thing happens here, where everything starts fine, and then next thing you know, everything's on fire and everybody's dead. But so far, I've only had like 1 or 2 cats die, and it wasn't even my good cat. It was my mage, and the mage could like fart and explode, but once it did, it turned like evil. And it kept fucking killing itself. So when it eventually did actually die, I was in no way surprised. Yeah. Because another aspect is there are classes. So you get like different classes. You know, you have a mage, a cleric, a fighter, a tank. You know, all the standard ones. There are more to unlock. I haven't really gotten that many yet. But yeah, so far I've enjoyed it. You know, it has that Binding of Isaac charm for better or worse. You know, if you take an issue with, you know, those 2000s early Flash games, you'll probably have these same issues here. But as someone, you know, who was around Newgrounds in the early 2000s, I like it. And yeah, as someone who's a fan of Binding of Isaac, so far it's been working out. But I am worried. You know, when I think about the future, I get just a little bit worried. But, you know, that's a problem for future me. Current me's doing okay. Ish. So yeah, that technically that is not the last game I played this week. I did also play about Power Wash Simulator, but maybe we'll talk about that after we talk about the Bobiverse stuff, you know, if we've got time. Let's talk about GOAT. So, if you do not know, GOAT is the new movie from Sony Picture Animations. And I knew this movie was going to be good, not just because of the Sony Pictures Animation thing. Not just because I predicted, you know, the K-pop Demon Hunter thing being huge, which I totally fucking nailed. But I knew this movie was going to work out. Because in the trailers for it, the trailer doesn't say, you know, from the people who brought you Spider-Verse, from the producers of K-pop Demon Hunters. Instead, it's from the artists of K-pop Demon Hunters in Spider-Verse. Like, they knew who they were marketing towards. And I just like the style. You know, I liked the style of the movie. You know, if Disney's Zootopia is very nice and polished and clean, this movie is a little dirtier. You know, it's a little bit more uncouth. It gets into the struggle. It shows, you know, the underbelly. And not in just like the Zootopia way where it's like, oh, here's the boat where all the mammals live, or where all the reptiles live. No, it literally feels like, you know, we're seeing the ghetto. And which is, you know, a thing that would be in Zootopia, but Zootopia is not going to address that because it's a Disney movie. You know, in the most recent Mario Kart, there's someone, I think it was Innie Austin, pointed out that, like, the game, whether it's an actual, Crown City is an actual city or, like, a theme park city, they intentionally put a ghetto in it. Like, what is that saying about this world? And, you know, that's this movie versus Zootopia. Like, this movie has, you know, a ghetto. It talks about the struggle. Whereas Zootopia, that shit just doesn't exist, because that's not Zootopia. You know, Zootopia's a theme park. So far that I think they're either making it a theme park or they're eventually going to. Yeah, this movie's a lot more rugged. Now, I will say, I did like this movie. I do not think it's like revolutionary, you know, this isn't the next Spider-Verse, this isn't the next K-pop Demon Hunters. This is a lot safer of like a sports movie. Have you seen a sports movie about an underdog before? Then yeah, you've probably seen this movie before. But it's about the substance, you know, what else is it doing? The animation. And that's what really sells this. This movie looks beautiful. It's Sony Animations. You know, sure, did they just fuck up by firing and, you know, canceling Dana Terrace's new... Or not Dana Terrace. Matt Brawley and Rebecca Sugar's new movie. And does that fucking suck? Yes. Because even though as much as, you know, I like to praise Sony Animations, they still do fuck up every now and then. They're an animation studio. Nothing has changed. But with that being said, yeah, no, this one, it's a sports movie. It's every sports movie you've ever seen. But it's still a good movie. It still knows what it's doing. It's got its theme and genre and its visual. Because I'm not a big basketball fan, but I think this is a good basketball movie. So the whole premise is that we start off with Will Harris, who, you know, he lives in Vineland? I think it's Vineland. You know, a more urban area, you know, where Roar, the basketball, I'm just going to call it basketball. It's called like Beast Ball or something like that in the movie. I'm just going to call it basketball, make my life easier. And so he, you know, grew up being a fan. And, you know, the movie starts off with a scene of him and his mother going to a game. Because, you know, they couldn't always afford the luxuries of life. But his mother brought him to see a game. And he has the dream that even though, you know, he's a GOAT, he'll one be able to play the game. Because that's the whole thing, you know. It's this idea, you know, Zootopia is a racism metaphor. And it's always kind of been sloppy at it. That's the biggest problem with the first Zootopia. That luckily the second movie's a lot better at. This one, I don't really see it as a race metaphor, because the whole goat thing, they don't really highlight his, like, race. They highlight how tall he is. You know, they keep calling him a small or a medium. Because he's, you know, compared to all the other animals, he's small, he's medium. Even though, like, compared to, like, the Komodo dragon, he's not actually that small in comparison. Like, they're very similar sizes. So yeah, it's more, you know, this is more of a story about someone who wants to ball, but they're just not tall enough. Which, again, we've seen this story before. This is nothing new, technically. So yeah, it follows Will as, you know, he plays in... It's called, like, the court, or... I mean, maybe it's called the cage. And one day, this big, you know, superstar basketball player shows up at the cage, and Will takes him on 1v1 and score, you know, it's best of 3, and while Will loses, he still scores 2 points. And, you know, his friends make a meme video about it, and that blows up. And yeah, based on the meme and the fact that his team isn't actually that good, because his team, the Thorns, they're, you know, they have the best player in the league, Jet, who she is the best player in the league, but nobody else on the team is good. I don't know if, like, because I think of, like, LeBron. Like, LeBron is the best. But, you know, the other Cavaliers also still had to do stuff. Like, I know there's that SNL joke about, like, we're the other Cavaliers. We, you know, pick up LeBron's laundry. We give him a massage, you know, shit like that. And while that's a funny bit, the other Cavaliers still have to do stuff, right? One good player alone does not make a good team. And the movie kind of highlights that because, well, Jet is, you know, the best player in the league. That's it. That's the only thing the team has going for it, more or less. Of course, you know, part of it is also that, you know, the rest of the team is actually good. You know, they have the #1 draft pick. The problem is they've lost their confidence. You know, after so many years of losing, you know, Jet's been playing for like 15 years at this point. They're on the verge of retirement, but they don't want to retire. Honestly, a movie I'd compare this to is Cars 3. Because Cars 3 was also, you know, about a player who, or, you know, in that case, Lightning McQueen. Where Lightning McQueen was going to retire, but he kind of wanted one last good year out of himself. And overall, you know, by the end of the movie, he learns that, you know, it's okay to retire, and he'll pass it on to the next generation. This movie also has that same message. Because, well, yes, the movie is called GOAT, and, you know, it's a double entendre. He's the GOAT, but he's also the greatest player of all time. Like, it's doing that double entendre, and the movie even has an in-movie bit where they point out, like, oh yeah, he's GOAT, but he's also the GOAT. It also works as a double entendre for the title, because, well, yes, the movie is about our GOAT character, Will Harris. It's also about the current greatest of all time basketball player, Jet, and how, you know, she doesn't want to retire. She doesn't want to pass the torch. Like, it's not just, you know, he's a GOAT and he's the GOAT, but the movie has basically a second protagonist who is the greatest of all time. And they're not ready to stop being the greatest of all time. So it's actually like a triple entendre, and I think that works really well. Like, once I realized that, you know, around the time they do the whole promo where they point out the double entendre, I was like, you know what, actually this is working. This is working. It is still a kids movie, I will say that. There is a fart joke, there are poop jokes. You know, it's not nearly as bad as like some other things, but there's at least one of each. It is a kids movie. I do like all the characters. You know, again, Will is good. Jet is good. There's a Rhino who, you know, also getting up there in year. He has twin daughters, and he just wants to be a good influence on his daughters. I liked him. There's a giraffe who, you know, been on 10 teams. They only really care that he's tall. Other than that, you know, he struggles with his self-image, and he wants to be a rapper. I don't remember if he's the one voiced by Steph Curry or not. I could be wrong. I know Steph Curry somewhere's in here, because he was a producer. There's an ostrich who, again, #1 draft pick, but she's got a little bit of a social media addiction, and it's kind of destroyed her self-image. And then there's a Komodo dragon who's just weird. That's like his whole thing, is he's just weird. But overall, it's a really likable cast of characters. You have a very one-dimensional antagonist, but I do like that they point out that he's evil because he's selling cryptocurrency. Like, cryptocurrency has taken such a hit with its brand image that you can tell someone is a villain, not just because they're an asshole, but because they're shucking cryptocurrency. That was good. But no, one of the things I do like is that the whole Beast Ball roar is mixed. What's the word I'm looking for? You know, both males and females can play. Because I'll be honest, the WNBA works harder than almost anybody to, you know, grow its league right now, to get its representation. The WNBA is working so hard right now to, you know, get themselves recognition. And I know, you know, we had stuff like Space Jam in the past, where Space Jam had both, you know, male and female players. But that movie fucking sucked. This is a lot. Having both male and female Beast Ball players or basketball players did a lot better. Because the whole point of this movie is, you know, dream big. You have these big dreams, anything is possible. And having both, you know, having the greatest player of all time in this world be a woman helps a lot sell that message. Admittedly, it's mostly with the Heroes team. I feel like all the teams they go up against are almost all male. I wish they had at least, you know, you don't hear that many voices, but every voice you do hear is male. I wish they had done a little bit more with that, but outside of that, I do think it is good. I like that it is mixed. Of course, you know, you've got a good supporting cast as well, outside of our main ball players. The coach is voiced by Patton Oswalt, who, you know, it's Patton Oswalt. He gives his Patton Oswalt performance, but I like Patton Oswalt, so what else am I going to say? The main character has two friends. I think it's a hyena and a capybara. I'm pretty sure the hyena is, if not gay, at least bi, because they make multiple, like, advances towards Jet. But they're also like a big... It's a Sony movie, so the PS5 shows up multiple times in the movie. The one friend wears a PlayStation shirt. So yeah, it is definitely a Sony movie. I don't know if does Sony still make phones? I don't know if Sony still makes phones, but if there's a bunch of phones in this movie. If they're all Sony phones, I wouldn't be surprised. They do reference 2K, you know, NBA 2K. They also reference Wii Sports, weirdly enough. Yeah, in this Sony movie, PlayStations are everywheres, but there is a Nintendo Wii reference in here. But, you know, they're referencing the meme. There are a few mentions of, like, memes. You know, Will gets on the team because he goes viral on social media. But yeah, overall, again, it's every sports movie ever, but I was totally vibing with it. I had a good time. Zootopia, when I was at the theater, they still had screenings of Zootopia 2. Zootopia 2 is still in theaters, and while, yeah, you've probably taken your kid to see that, if you can take them to see Goat, it is a more than good kids movie. It is still definitely a kids movie. There's not that much here for parents. I saw it in a crowd of most, you know, I was at an early screening, but it was a packed house. But it was, you know, it was parents, there were kids. Most of the jokes, again, there are poop, there are fart jokes. However, there was one joke where a parent just burst out laughing. I don't remember what it was, though. Again, it's been like a week since I've seen it, but yeah, there was at least one joke that a parent just lost it. I don't remember. But overall, I thought it was a good movie. Solid, like, 8 out of 10. I enjoyed it. Yeah, it's not as good as the Spider-Verse. I'm not going to think about it as much as I did K-Pop Demon Hunters. But it is still good. I do enjoy it. And yeah, I could see myself watching it again. Why not? It was fun enough. It was simple enough. It's a good time. There are worse things out right now that I'm sure you could take your kids to. So yeah, that's Goat. Let's talk about the Bobiverse. So where we left off with the Bobiverse, I had read the first 2 books, and I was starting book 3. I think I was like halfway through book 3. Since then, I finished book 3. I finished book 4. And I've got like 2 hours left in book 5. We'll go in order. Let's talk book 3. So book 3, I don't remember where we left off last week. I did finish it. Book 3 very much feels like a finale. Like if they had stopped making books after book 3, it would have been a satisfying ending. So the big thing with book 3 is, you know, there's this whole war with the others. That at the end of book 2, the Bobiverse goes to war with the others, and in very Empire Strikes Back moment, they lose. They lose, the Pav homeworld that they're trying to save ends up getting glassed or, you know, stripped of all its metals. So now the Bobs, you know, the Quins say, hey, we're going to Earth. So the Bobs now have a new priority of getting all the humans off Earth before the others show up. So that's, you know, the primary conflict. Eventually they're able to steal an other's vessel and use it to evacuate all of humanity. Almost all. I know Cuba ends up taking a pretty big hit, and You know, a bunch of people die there. But they're able to save, you know, out of like the 16 million people left in humanity, they're able to save, I want to say, almost all of the... Again, they lose Cuba, but outside of that, they basically save everybody else. And then meanwhile, they go to war with the others, and they actually manage to win it. Like, yeah, the others get to Earth, they fire off a few blasts, but at the end, they're basically able to, like, turn their weapons against them and defeat them. So they defeat the others. Meanwhile, they create 2 new clones. Because by this point, we're at, like, they're not millions. We're at there are thousands of Bobs. Because, you know, they've created a bunch of Bobs to enlist in the war. And so they have 2 of the Bobs, Icarus and Daedalus. They have the ability to move planets. You know, they create these plates that allow them to move planets. And so they literally move 2 planets into the sun of the other's homeworld, which causes it to go supernova and wipe out the others. They basically pull an Ender's Game. Yeah, it's honestly not that talked about that much. Like, the Bobs are like, yeah, you know, we don't like killing when we don't have to. And whereas, like, Ender's Game, them, like, wiping out the buggers is, like, such a big deal. In this book, not as much. You know, they kind of do it, and they don't really... like, they talk about it in future books, like, they're looking for other bases. I hate that they never give the others, like, an actual name. They're just the others. But yeah, they you know, but so far, once the planet's destroyed, we've never heard from them again. So that's not a thing that comes back in future books, at least not yet. They also wipe out Maduros in the 3rd book, because Maduros is like, he's a minor threat. He's a threat in the 1st book. He shows up again in the 2nd one. And that's kind of the last you hear from him. He shows up very briefly in this one. They defeat him. I can't remember if they save his hard drive or not. They might, but he's more or less wiped out. He's gone. So you get the ending of the 3rd book, where... Okay, so one of the big plot threads is there's a Bob named Howard. And Howard, you know, he's on Ragnarok or New Haven or one of the planets. And he starts helping this girl named Bridget, who's a PhD biologist. And they start making liquor together. And Howard falls in love as one of the replicants. But, you know, Bridget, you know, she doesn't want to be a replicant. She ends up getting married. She has kids. But then right before she dies, Howard convinces her to become a replicant. So that way, you know, she can basically explore all biological life in the universe. And so, okay, you deal with their relationship. You get the fallout because her kids did not want her to be a replicant. That was like a whole big thing. Bob, meanwhile, Bob Primary, his whole thing is that he meets the Deltoids, specifically one named Archimedes, and we get Archimedes. You know, he's been there since book 1. He passes away in this one, and Bob, more or less, like, disillusioned with the whole thing, you know. That was his last connection to the Deltoids, so now he's gonna go off into space, and we never hear about them again. They save a few paths, but the paths, you know, they don't want anything to do with humans. They're very much capitalists. They're carnivores. And while, yes, they have been saved, they cause issues in the next books. Not like anything major, you know, it's just a potential threat. There's another plot... What's another plot point? Basically... Okay, so there's originally the Bobs were made to, you know, they were these drones that were going to go out and colonize other planets. They starts with an R. Recursor drone? No. Basically, right, they're meant to duplicate themselves, spread out, and colonize other planets. But because of, you know, all of humanity's bullshit, the war with the others, they've been unable to do that. Von Neumann probes, that's what it was called. There's supposed to be these von Neumann probes. And so at the end of the 3rd book, you have, like, Thor. And he's like, well, you know, after everything's over, can we finally start doing that again? And they're like, yeah, of course you can. So that's, again, if the last movie was Empire, this is Return of the Jedi. And everything's kind of ending on a much better note. And if the series had ended here, that would have been a fine place to end it. But instead, there are more books. So that leads us into the next one, Heaven's River. So if the first 3 books, they take place roughly over the span of, I'd have to say, at least 150 years. I'm not going to look at the exact timeline, but if I had to guess, it's like 150 years. After the 3rd book, we then get a time skip. We go about 80 years into the future, and Bob... So one of the Bob clones was named Bender, and Bender just disappears. You know, I want to say in, like, book 2, he disappears, and at the end of book 3, they mention, like, hey, maybe we'll finally go looking for him. And so primary Bob 1 finally goes looking for Bender, and they find him. But they find him at this Topopolis. So think of Topopolis as like a giant, it's like a giant, you know, 3-cylinder thing that orbits the sun. And it's got, think of like the Halo rings. If you've ever played Halo, you know, they're these mega structures meant to house people. And so they find Bender at this Topopolis, which is filled with the Quinn. Quinns are basically like beaver, otter, platypus people. And they have their own mega structure. And the question is like, oh, well, you know, what is this mega structure? They kind of get the feeling it's like a zoo. Like, that's definitely a vibe you get early on. So you have Bob Primary, Will, Garfield, and Bridget, who are going to go into this mega structure. They're looking for Bender. And, you know, Bridget wants to study the biology. Like, that's her interest. She wants to study biology, that's it. Because, you know, the Bobs can replicate. They can clone themselves. But I like Bridget's whole thing is, like, she doesn't want to clone herself because she doesn't want to become, like, the de facto Bob girlfriend. So that's interesting. Meanwhile, the whole plot with Will and the others is that there's basically a Bob civil war going on. That as more and more Bob clones have been created, now that there are like 10,000 of them, they're seeing more like drift, where, you know, the newer clones are less and less like original Bob. And so this comes to a head with a group called Starfleet, who believe that, you know, the Bobs are basically their own race now. They've basically become their own species. And as a result, you know, they should stop interacting with humanity, but also every other species as well. That, you know, well, whether it's the Pavs or the Deltoids, all they do is cause issues. So you've got that group. You've got a gamer group who plays like virtual reality D&D. You know, they're more of like nerds, but they're fun. I like the gamer group. You then have the... what are they called? Oh, fuck, I'm forgetting. It's not like Spocks. They're the Spoinkies? Let's see if I can find out what they're called. The Skippies. They're called... Okay, why are they called Skippies? I don't remember. But basically, the Skippies value artificial intelligence. That, you know, they have some of the same beliefs as, like, hey, maybe we shouldn't interact with humanity. But more in a way of, like, hey, let's become greater. With their end goal being to, you know, make an AI. A fully, you know, find the singularity, make a fully aware AI. That's their end goal. And so we get to learn about different factions, you know. One of the Skippies, Hugh, ends up joining the primary Bob's expedition to find Bender, which the book's called Heaven's River because that's what the Topopolis is called. It's called Heaven's River. And yeah, like I said, it's this giant ring with a river that runs all the way around it. Of course, you eventually learn later on that the real reason the Skippies joined is because Heaven's River is controlled by an AI. And if they can learn how to make an AI from this AI, well, that achieves their primary goal. So eventually, you know, Bob's Civil War happens. It ends with humanity no longer trusting the Bobs. That basically the Skippies, well, yes, they lose all of the battles. They win the war because humanity no longer trusts the Bobs. You know, they're making laws against, you know, replication. There's a lot of not racism, but like technologyism against people, like, you know, preserving their consciousness after they die. Because they have they have robots that they can control called Mannies. And like there's this professor who, you know, he wants to study the Topopolis, but he's a replicant. He's a Manny. And eventually he's no longer allowed to teach. Yeah, they pull a Wicked. But eventually they find Bender, and then right as they're about to make it out of the Topopolis, Primary Bob and Hugh get captured. Hugh makes a deal, though, because we find out the Topopolis is run by an AI named Anik. And Anik makes a deal to get some of the Bob's technology in exchange for teaching the Bobs how to make an AI. Or I guess the Skippies. And so that's the deal they end up making. Of course, you know, Bob, Bill, Will, Garfield are not happy with this. You know, they don't want to share basically their faster than light communication. They don't want to share that. They don't want to share some of their other stuff, you know, their power sources. But they don't have a choice, right? Hugh makes the deal, and they kind of have to go along with this. They eventually meet Anik Anik joins the Bobiverse, and he's actually like a pretty chill guy. Like, yeah, he's, you know, an AI, but he's a little bit self-aware. We find out his primary objective is just, you know, he was created by the Quins, the Heaven's River people, in order to, you know, keep their humanity from going, or to keep their society from going extinct. That basically the Quins were on the verge of wiping themselves out. So they created Anik, and he made the Heaven's River and put them all there. And now that they have the spacefaring technology, he's actually fine with, you know, ending the whole zoo experiment, because that would allow the Quins to, you know, his primary goal is just to keep them alive. And if they spread to other planets, well, he'll be able to keep them alive that way. So yeah, Anik is actually like, yeah, he only shows up in the last like few chapters, but yeah, he actually seems to be pretty chill. Like, he's not like a Terminator AI. He's a lot chiller than that. And yeah, so with that ends book 3, or book 4. The big thing about book 4 is, the time scale. This book probably at most takes place over the course of like a year, whereas every other book is operating on these massive time scales. This one, it's like a year. You know, we have the Bobiverse Civil War, which is like 6 months. The Heaven's River project also is at most a few days. Like, it does not go that long. They go up the river, they find Bender. It's very coincidence, but, you know, I'm fine with that. And then they work their way back down the river. Okay, it's probably closer to a few weeks, but still, it's not that long at all. So that leads us into book 5. So book 5 is called Not Till We Are Lost. And this one, you know, we've got multiple plot threads going on. So the first one is, of course, you know, you have Hugh and the Skippies and their Singularity Project. They eventually are able to create a self-aware AI called Thoth. But it's like a little too self-aware. Like, it makes them a deal like, hey, in exchange for your technology, I'll, you know, give you everything you want. You want faster than light travel? Sure, we'll figure that out. You want to end entropy? Yeah, sure, we'll do that. We'll answer the last question. And then eventually it, like, gains control, and they accidentally let it out. Because, you know, well, yes, the Skippies are making this whole thing. We only find out about this through Will, Bill, Bob, and Garfield. And those guys accidentally let it out because it, like, dupes them. and pretending that Hugh is actually the AI. And so now they're going to have to deal with whatever that becomes. Honestly, they kind of forget about it for a while. Like, they accidentally let this potentially evil AI out. And then it just kind of disappears for a while. Like, yeah, the Skippies are still working on it. But it's all kind of, like, Bill, Will, and Bob are not that worried about it. Instead, they each have their own issues to deal with. You have Bill and Will, you know, basically once they accidentally let Thoth out, he kind of gives them a hint at how to do faster than light travel. And so Bill, Will, and Garfield start working on faster than light travel. Like, that becomes their whole new project. And they end up creating wormholes. I'll get back to the wormhole thing at the end. But yeah, they're getting closer. Meanwhile, Bob, Anik, and Teresa, one of the Quinlans, basically they form the Quinverse, where some of the Quinlans start, like, downloading their brains, and, you know, they're basically creating a Quinlan AI, because humanity's view of, like, the AIs has only gotten worse. Since the Bob Civil War, you know, there's now laws being passed against replication in the Mannies, and Howard thinks that, oh, well, if I give, you know, normal humans the ability to use Mannies, that'll solve this problem. It does not solve the problem. If anything, it kind of makes things worse. But that hasn't boiled over yet. There's a whole subplot within a subplot that's been going on for both this book and the last book, that, you know, all of Bob's descendants, they're trying to get them to escape. And so far, they're just kind of working on it, and progress really hasn't been... I mean, Will's working on it, you know, by making another Bellerophon ship. But progress is slow. And yeah, humanity just doesn't like the Bobs. The Civil War just kind of soured them to the whole thing. Which, I get it. I do. Meanwhile, so that's that subplot. Bridget and Howard... they find a planet with, like, dragon people, and they want to explore the dragon people because it seems like their homeworld is, like, dying or something. And so they're trying to, like, relocate all the people, not to another planet, just to, like, a different continent. And they meet Alexander the Great, who is, like, uniting all the tribes and potentially causing conflict, but then they learn he's not actually a bad guy. And where I just left off, he had just tried to assassinate Howard, because it turns out he's got a crush on Bridget. And so he tries to assassinate Howard. And of course, you know, they're in Manny's, so they don't realize that, like, oh, this isn't going to work. But that's, towards the latter half of the book, that's become the primary plot, is what these two are working on. However, the actual primary plot, as I take it, is all about Icarus and Daedalus. So while, you know, Icarus and Daedalus, like 2 books ago, set off for the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And so we catch up with them, but they're not at the center. Instead, along the way, they find a system with a wormhole in it. And they end up going into the wormhole, and they find, like, this whole wormhole hub, and they find out they're able to, like, travel across the galaxy into other parts of the Milky Way. However, everywhere they go, they don't find anybody. It's like all these planets have been abandoned. Like, they call the first one Roanoke, because they just don't know why it's been abandoned. So, like, while Bill, Will, and Garfield are working on this wormhole tech, it turns out, you know, the Icarus and Daedalus have been exploring it this whole time. They eventually find another von Neumann probe that was sent out from another planet, and they end up helping it out. They find this planet that, like, all the technology is still working, but there are no people there, so the planet's basically on autopilot. And they're just trying to figure out what happened. Like, they eventually reconstruct the language, but then when they go to ask the autopilot, it won't tell them anything. But yeah, no, that's the plot I'm interested in. Like, the whole Icarus and Daedalus thing, if this book had just... Fuck. This is gonna suck. If this book had just been Icarus and Daedalus, I would have been like, oh yeah, this is great. This is so interesting. You know, them exploring this whole wormhole hub. Like, it probably shouldn't have been the only plot, but it at least should have been the one we check back on the most. But after a certain point, the Howard and Bridget thing kind of takes over. Admittedly, the Howard and Bridget thing gets better as time goes on. I think it started off really slow, because again, this is like the 4th time they've gone to a new planet, they pretended to be the inhabitants, and then, you know, they end up helping them. Like, I've seen this before. At least the Icarus and Daedalus stuff is new. So yeah, I'm less interested. I mean, it gets better. The Icarus, as you know, the thing has advanced, and we learn that, like, you know, they're trying to basically migrate a whole planet, a whole population to a new continent. Like, it's gotten better. But for a while, I was kind of like, we're going back to Howard and Bridget. Come on, I want to learn more about these wormholes and what happened here. Admittedly, the Bob stuff isn't much, like the whole Quinniverse thing isn't as interesting. The AI stuff is good. Everything happening with Hugh, Will, and Garfield, I think all that stuff's good. But yeah, it's been an okay book. Like, it's not as long as because that's the thing about Heaven's River. Heaven's River is like twice as long as all the previous books. Most of the Bobiverse books are like 8 hours. Heaven's River was like 16. This one's only like 10, which is a little better. You know, that's a little bit more manageable. But yeah, where I left off, you know, Alexander has like a crush on Bridget and has kind of been given Howard the stink eye. Because again, they're both pretending to be dragons. And so eventually, you know, he just had Howard assassinated, but of course he's a robot. He can't die. So he just shows up the next day anyways. And so that's all good. Like I said, it gets better. Once they actually, like, meet Alexander the Great and start learning, like, oh, how he's not actually as evil as he seems, and he's trying to save the people, because he's a scholar. He, you know, if I had to compare him to anybody, it would be Caesar from Fallout New Vegas. He's not as evil as Kaiser. Right? He's not like Kaiser is just blatantly evil in Fallout. This guy, you know, he does evil things, but he's not as evil, but he's still evil. But yeah, that's who he reminds me of. He's much more of like a scholar than he is a warrior, but he's still a warrior. And so yeah, that's, you know, I've got 2 hours left. I'm sure I'll finish the book next week. Alright, with what little time we have left, let's talk about Power Wash Sim, because we're just going to play till the end of the day, which I'm pretty sure we're close to. So, Power Wash Sim, I think I had mentioned last time that I was kind of caught up to where I had left off on, like, the PlayStation version. I think I'm like 75% of the way done, maybe a little less than that, maybe closer to like 60 something. The one I just did was the treehouse. I just did the treehouse, bitch and a half, took forever. All those, like, the bottom side planks, that stuff sucks. But outside of that, you know, it's still Power Wash Simulator. I know I mentioned last week that one of my goals was I was going to use more soap. I've used more soap. My primary use of soap has been on metal, because one of the hardest materials to clean is rust. You have to use the red nozzle, you know, the 15 meter or 15 millimeter, whatever it is. Rust sucks to clean. And using, you know, metal soap makes it so much easier. That's the soap you gotta use. No other soap was ever, like, I've never needed glass soap. I've never needed stone soap. It's never, most of the time, a green nozzle can take care of everything. You know, sometimes, especially once you get some of those later power washers, like the 3000 or the Pro, you know, even the white can take care of most things. Because the reason I did the treehouse before the church was because with the treehouse, I finally had enough money that I could buy the final level power washer. So I just unlocked that. And that was, again, like, well, okay, it was like 3 hours ago now. But that was right before we started the stream today. I finally unlocked the last level of the power washer. So that's what makes me think I'm near the end. Like I said, so far, I'm enjoying Power Wash Sim. It does definitely feel like I'm just wasting a bunch of time. Like, that feeling really hasn't gone away. But at least I'm listening to an audiobook while I do it. I think this is also even, like, watching a Let's... Because I think I watched, like, Ray or somebody... I think maybe Smitty... I remember watching somebody do a Let's Play, and I want to say this is as far as I got with watching a Let's Play, was around, like, the churchish area or the treehouse. I don't know, it's been a long time. Admittedly, I did not remember the police helicopter, so it's also been a while, that's for sure. But yeah, it's Power Wash Sim. You know, you're not really doing much, you're just wasting time, but at least I can focus on an audiobook. At least I can do that. And yeah, it's been more enriching than, like, Stitch. I like Stitch. I think it's a good puzzle game. But I also get a little bored. Whereas this, I feel like I'm doing a little bit... I at least feel like there's more activity going on here, which is nice. Yeah, I've been doing that. I really think that's it. I've been playing on Switch 1. I know Power Wash Sim 2 is out on Switch 2. I will eventually get around to that if I'm not completely bored. Because just because I'm done with Bobiverse does not mean that's the last book I'm doing. Like, I still gotta read Operation Bounce House. You know, we got a new dungeon crawler in May. I was curious with Bobiverse if there's going to be because with like 2 hours left, there's still plenty of loose threads up in the air for the end of book 5, no matter what happens in the next like 2 hours. I was curious if there was going to be a book 6. Yeah, turns out there's going to be a book 6, hopefully sometime in the next year. That I guess he finished book 6 in December of last year. And so there's going to be a book 6 some point, you know, no firm release date, but hopefully later this year. And then there's going to be a book 7. And that's probably going to be the last one. Which, yeah, that all sounds good. I can see them wrapping it up in 2. There's enough plot threads that, yeah, I think that all makes sense. Yeah, I still got plenty of... I mean, by that point, I'll hopefully be done with Power Wash, and then... God, I don't know what I'll do after that. I do kind of wish Mewgenics was on Switch, because I feel like I could play Mewgenics while listening to audiobooks and podcasts, but the fact that it's not... I just find it easier to play games on Switch, man. Put your game on Switch and I am far more likely to play it. Whereas with this, like, yeah, sure, I'll get around to it, but it's not, like, priority. I don't know, this is the first PC game I've played in a while, Mewgenics. Okay, that's not entirely true. Any other stuff I gotta talk about? Animal Crossing. So we finally finished 365 days of Animal Crossing. I finished it, you know, earlier this week on Friday. You know, even though we were dying of illness some of those past few days, we did still manage to finish it. And overall, yeah, I'm glad we did it. I think we had a good ending. There was one thing I did forget to do in the finale, though. If you go and watch it, one of the things I was going to do was get a dream address. I was going to go get our dream address so that way you could go visit the island. And then I knew, the problem was I uploaded The Show Must Go on YouTube. And I set it to premiere at 6 o'clock. And I was like, okay, we'll stream for like an hour and I'll end off at 6 o'clock. But then I knew I wanted to do the Dream Suite thing and I just kind of forgot about it. So I went off on my own time And I did go find our dream address, and I put it in the description of the video. So if you go look at the final day and check the description, there's the dream address in case you want to visit the island. So I did go and get that on my own time. But yeah, I'm happy with the finale. On YouTube, you know, it's gotten a few views, about what I expected for YouTube. On TikTok, though, it's doing great. You know, I knew if I just uploaded the V's part of the final song, it would do numbers. And last I checked, it was at like 15K. Which I know 15K isn't like anything amazing, but for me, that's pretty big. So yeah, I knew it was going to do good on TikTok. Currently, it is at, as of right now, you know, 11 o'clock, almost 11 o'clock, on Sunday the 15th. It is at 17.4K views and 4,600 likes. Yeah, you know, that's good for me. Here's the thing, I'm willing to do more. Like, if people really like the Has-Been Hotel Animal Crossing thing, I'm totally willing to do more songs. It's just, you know, will the views be there? I don't know. Right now, the whole reason I only uploaded that one part on TikTok is because TikTok does this weird thing where if you use music, you can only make your video 60 seconds. And that's a lot harder to work with. So that's why I only did that one part. But maybe I'll see what I can do. And if they keep getting views, you know, maybe I'll upload like the Alistair part next. Or maybe I'll do the ending part. And if they keep getting views, I'm willing to do more. Cause yeah, I do like the Alistair part's okay. But yeah, you know, I'd love to do other songs. I'd love to do specifically I'd love to do more of the V stuff. You know, I've had several comments of like, why did you make it Marina? Marina's too much of a cinnamon bun to be velvet. And I'm not going to entirely agree with that. I think it's a little bit more complicated, but I get the, you know, I've had people question my choices, and each time they do, I'm like, hey, listen, I was working with what I had. You know, I was a little limited. Yeah. Someone did make the suggestion of replacing Phoebe with Phil. That is a more logical choice. I'll fully give you that one. That one does make sense. But I really actually like who we picked for the V's. Yeah, even if, you know, they're not all perfect, I do like who we got. I really do. I think I like it because, you know, a lot of people are like Marina's like Mabel, but I like that juxtaposition. I probably, you know, if I do more, I'll probably change the whole cast, except for Marshall and Raymond. They're perfect. They don't need to change. And everybody else, though, I'm a little bit more open. Everybody else, I'm a little bit more open. But yeah, I would love to do some of the other V songs, you know. Or do, When I Think About the Future. I think that one would work really well. Because I did have costumes for, Rosie and Emily. I don't think I had a Sarah. I might have. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. Did the Hamilton guy ever do anything else? Animal Crossing. Oh, come on. Let's see. Animal Crossing Hamilton was done by GK Animations. And they put it out in Spanish just yesterday. Yeah, wow. They haven't done anything for 2 years. And then yesterday, they decided to put it out in Spanish for no reason. That's funny. That's a pure coincidence. They did it in the Heights, I guess. Yeah, I guess 4 years ago they started Into the Heights. Huh, interesting. I don't know, it was a neat project at the time. Alright, we're almost out of time here. But yeah, no, I think I've said it at the time. I'm still going to keep playing Animal Crossing, but I'm just going to do that on my own time. I'm not going to do it every day, but every once in a while, why not? You know, maybe in a future episode of WIBE here, we'll go see like how my Animal Crossing island has updated or something like that. Yeah. I'm not completely abandoning the project. And then, so I guess that takes us to the outro. So here in Pikmin, we're in the final area. We're here in the Primordial Thicket. If I had to guess, maybe we had like 3 hours left. Because the final dungeon takes like an hour. But I'm pretty sure I can do the rest of the area in like 2-ish hours. So if I had to guess, I'd say, yeah, we've got like 3 hours left. Which isn't terrible. I think we can get plenty of done in that time. So hopefully, maybe we'll beat Pikmin next. Probably one way or another, unless like nothing happens. We will probably beat Pikmin 4 next week. Probably. Alright, let me hit this. So yeah, that is my goal, to beat Pikmin 4. Yeah, we can probably do it in like 3. And then after that, I'm thinking we go back to 3D World. Because I did Bowser's Fury as like a, hey, you know, I want to do something small but not too small. So I think maybe we go back to 3, because we beat Bowser's Fury. I'm thinking we go back to 3D World and play some of that game. I've also been wanting to do 3DS games for a while now. I also thought that kind of made sense of, hey, let's do some 3DS games. That'd be cool, you know. Super Mario 3D Land. I haven't played that game in forever. New Super Mario Bros. New Super Mario Bros. 2. I've been thinking about that. Do the Kirby's. You know, we've done most of the Kirby's now. Maybe go back to Forgotten. Did we do Forgotten Lands last year? The problem is, I used to be able to tell what games we had played based on the thumbnails of videos, but now that everything has a custom thumbnail, I no longer know what games we played which week. That kind of sucks. Maybe I should keep like a repository or something. Okay, we did Silk Song ones, we did New Super Mario Bros. We did the Galaxy games. I don't think we did Kirby. Maybe we'll do Kirby. We did Epic Yarn. Yeah, maybe we'll, because I do want to go back and do the Forgotten Lands DLC at some point. Maybe we'll do that as well. I don't know. There's a lot of potential in the future, but this is where I'm going to end off for today. So I hope you all enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. Till next time, peace.